BNY Mellon's Pershing, helping advisory firms and broker-dealers create great experiences for their clients, is our priority. Through our integrated wealth experience, we give you a high-touch service, flexible technology choices, and expert insights, so you can deliver a highly personalized experience to your clients at every step, from onboarding to wealth planning, to performance analysis and more. And because we're part of BNY Mellon, you'll benefit from more than 230 years of strength and stability. At Pershing, we're personally invested in your success.
Visit Pershing.com to learn more about Pershing's integrated wealth experience. Pershing LLC and Pershing Advisor Solutions LLC are both members of FINRA and SIPC. This is a Bloomberg Money Minute.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
Despite never having used them, Alison Peartree was not initially a fan of purple bricks.
Because I heard from my uncle's cousin's neighbour's dog walker they don't have proper estate agents.
But Alison's uncle's cousin's neighbour's dog walker was wrong. Purple Bricks have experienced local agents ready to sell your home.
Turns out Martin from Purple Bricks was very knowledgeable. And he didn't charge commission. I've even recommended him to my sister's boyfriend's auntie's hairdresser, Sharon.
Purple Bricks. Book your free valuation today.
Fixed fee payable on instruction or after 10 months. Viewing service cost extra.
Switch to 5G on Vodafone. Pre-order the new Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra 5G by March 8th and get wireless Galaxy Buds Plus for free. With unlimited 5G data, you can post 108 megapixel photos and download videos impossibly fast. All on the UK's best mobile data network. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
5G subject to coverage in your area. MPerf test awarded Vodafone Best 2019 Mobile Internet Performance. Minimum term applies. See vodafone.co.uk.
Live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
From New York City, this is Bloomberg Surveillance for our audience worldwide. We're live on Bloomberg Radio, 2 hours away from the opening bell in New York City. Equity futures positive on the week and on the session, up by 6 points on the S&P 500, positive 0.17%. In the FX market, here's your story for euro dollar. The euro going absolutely nowhere, near the lows of spring 2017 at 108.39. And in the bond market, Tom, quick guide for treasuries today. Yields come in 3 basis points to 159. U.S. retail sales, 60 minutes away.
What level on 10 years important for you, John?
Oh, I would say the lows of September, and I know we're some way off them, 143, right. 142, 143. And to break them sustainably, I think you've got to bring recession fears back on top in the United States.
Lots of news flows. We do economics, finance, and investment. We welcome all of you worldwide on our digital project, Sirius XM Channel 119, across this great nation. What we decided to do with the virus and epidemic in China is really go away from the media and sort of the inflammatory articles and speak to pros. We are honored that Anthony Fauci could join us, our great immunologist. We are honored that Jennifer Rohn would join us from UCL yesterday out of University of Washington microbiology. And we're particularly thrilled, John, to have a gentleman who's a legacy of Rockefeller University in this city. It is the true foundation of virology worldwide. Mr. Baltimore's work and others decades ago. And if Peter Hotez on with us again is a great honor.
We are really fortunate to have him. Dr. Peter Hotez, Dean of the National School of Tropical Medicine at Baylor College of Medicine, joins us now. Doctor, fantastic to have you with us on the program. I'd just like to talk about the politics at the moment between the United States and China. The US says they're offering China help, and that the help they're offering hasn't been accepted by the Chinese. Beijing today is saying they're welcome to come, and the WHO has said nothing has been decided. Doctor, what's your insight on what is going on, just the politics of these kind of investigations and various countries trying to get their hands around the same data?
Well, this is not a time to play politics. With the central China, Wuhan is in free fall right now. We're looking at 75% of the 60,000 cases and most of the deaths occurring in Wuhan. We learned yesterday that more than 1,000 healthcare workers have been infected, so they're on the front lines. The economy of China is in serious jeopardy, especially because central China is closed down. Remember, it's not just Wuhan, and it's Hubei province. Commerce between Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Macau has been cut off. No flights are going in, and this is a time when the world's, it's easy to say, but it's actually quite true. The world's countries need to get together. We're actually applying ancient technologies to this problem. I mean, we're talking about these quarantine of ships. I mean, we did that in the 14th century in Croatia in order to prevent bubonic plague from coming in from Asia Minor, and that's what we're still doing. We're still talking about collecting plasma from previously infected patients to administer antibodies. There's ancient technologies. We could do better than that.
Well, Doctor, let's talk about how we can do better, because there has been all kinds of questions asked over the last couple of days on transparency, on underreporting. Doctor, just how difficult is it to get the data anywhere near accurate as an assessment of what is happening on the ground right now in China?
Well, I think, what's happening also is the Chinese, to be fair, the Chinese themselves are struggling collecting the data, and we're learning that the diagnostic test that's being used is not adequate, maybe only 30 to 40% sensitive, so they had to revert to clinical diagnosis, meaning putting patients in a CAT scanner to see lesions on the lungs. So they're also struggling with the data. So it's a race to get all these new technologies into China as rapidly as possible, including new diagnostics, new drugs, and new vaccines. And that requires unprecedented levels of international cooperation, because no one country has a monopoly on technologies for this. I mean, basically what's happened is all of the G20 countries have failed to work together to put together technologies to respond to these pandemics. This was, in many aspects of this, were avoidable.
Dr. Hotez failed to take control of this. I want to pick up on that, especially as we get a sense that this is increasingly infectious, that even if it's not necessarily fatal, it is spreading quickly. We had Ira Longini, an advisor to the World Health Organization, saying yesterday that two-thirds of the world's population could catch this particular coronavirus. Do you buy that?
Well, with the new virus agent, all bets are off. We never really know till we know. There are a number of things that are positive that could happen, and a number of scary things that could happen. On the positive side, sometimes these coronaviruses are seasonal in nature, especially in the northern hemisphere, so they tend to die down a bit as we move into the spring and summer. We've seen this for other coronaviruses. We have no idea if that's going to happen for this one, so maybe we'll get lucky. But even then, in the southern hemisphere and the tropics, viruses don't show that same seasonality. We don't know how quickly we can accelerate technologies. We do have good surveillance in places like Western Europe and the United States, so maybe those forces will combine to mitigate or limit this epidemic and prevent it from becoming a pandemic. By pandemic, I mean transmission in multiple, serious levels of transmission in multiple countries. But there are places that I'm really worried about. We have no idea what's going on in North Korea, and I would imagine there's certain cases there, and there's not the ability to adequately detect and contain the virus in places like North Korea. I'm worried about any place with a depleted health system. The Philippines, Myanmar, some of the Southeast Asian countries like Laos and Cambodia. And then let's not forget we've got 1 to 3 million Chinese working in Africa through President Xi's Belt and Road Initiative. And so there's a high likelihood we're going to see virus entry into there. We've already seen now 8 cases in the Emirates and in the Middle East. So we have to assume that there's going to be cases moving into Africa. And I doubt many of those African countries are going to have the ability to detect and control the virus there. So those are the places I'm worried about. And indeed, those are the reasons why Dr. Tedros at WHO declared a public health emergency of international concern. Less worried about the U.S. and Europe, more about some of those other places we're discussing.
He very much shares those concerns, Doctor. He mentioned that in the news conference. Preventing it from becoming a pandemic, let's just round things up by discussing that. The quarantines, the travel curbs, are they helping to prevent this from becoming a pandemic?
Well, they're mixed. I understand why the U.S. government declared the travel bans. But remember, those have a downside, too, because other countries are looking what happened to China, and they're saying, well, why would I be transparent about my epidemic? Especially countries like Philippines that depend on a lot of commerce. What's the incentive for them to be transparent now about this epidemic? So I'm ordinarily not a big fan of travel bans. I understand the U.S. government declared it because it was a new age and they needed time to get their arms around it, but that could have a detrimental effect. Quarantine, as I say, it's a 14th century, quarantining ships a 14th century technology. We could have done better than that. I mean, it's really tragic what's happening in Japan, where people are actually acquiring infections during the quarantine. It's unethical, in my opinion.
Dr. Hotez, let's go back to Rockefeller University and Virology 101. Some of us took it, and, I'm sure it was the beginning course for you. China's reporting that they want to take the plasma for antibody development from patients that have been quote-unquote cured. Is that normal? Is that a pipe dream? Is that pop medicine? What is that?
No, it's a real approach, and but the point is it's a pretty old-fashioned approach. I mean, this was what was done during the 1918 pandemic influenza epidemic because we had nothing else to offer. And it sometimes works, it sometimes doesn't. It's a bit tricky because you have to have the right apply the right level of antibody. You have to time it right, and there's a lot of uncertainty around it. I think we have to think of it as a desperation measure, just like people were desperate in 1918. The difference, though, we've had 100 years to fine-tune our technology that we're not applying to this.
Peter Hotez, thank you so much. From the medieval to 1919 and then on to where we are next month and the month following in China. He is at Baylor University. Futures up 7. The Bloomberg NJ IT STEM report, always brought to you by New Jersey Institute of Technology, whose new School of Applied Engineering and Technology is meeting the increased demand for advanced manufacturing skills. More at njit.edu. Here's Bob Moon.
Tom, Jonathan, Lisa, good morning. Here's what's making news in science, technology, engineering, and math. Serious security concerns have been raised about a voting app that's been used in elections in Denver, West Virginia, Oregon, and Utah. The Massachusetts Institute of Technology report on the Votes app, that's VOATZ, found that attackers could alter, stop, or expose how an individual has voted. Boston-based Votes issued a statement accusing the researchers of using an old version of the program and acting in bad faith. Apple is on the hook for millions of dollars in back pay because it has failed to pay employees for the time they spend waiting for mandatory bag and iPhone searches at the end of their shifts, which can run up to 20 minutes. The state Supreme Court decided the employees are clearly under Apple's control while awaiting and during the exit searches. NASA's Space Snowman is revealing fresh secrets from its home far beyond Pluto. More than a year after its close encounter with the distant snowman-shaped object, the New Horizons spacecraft is still sending back data ever so slowly from more than 4 billion miles away. In a world with the farthest object ever explored, scientists have just learned it's entirely ultra-red or highly reflective, which is commonplace for the faraway twilight zone of our solar system known as the Kuiper Belt. It's also relatively smooth with far fewer craters than expected. Sorry. That's the Bloomberg NJIT STEM report. Tom, Jonathan, Lisa.
We accept your apology. Bob Moon, thank you very much, sir. Let's get you some headlines, some news worldwide, shall we? From New York is Michael Barr. Good morning to you, Michael.
Good morning, John, Tom, Lisa. Both the White House and Democrats are speaking out about Attorney General William Barr's comments after widespread criticism of his handling of the Roger Stone case. During an interview with ABC News, Barr says President Trump's tweets make it impossible for him to do his job.
So early the next morning, I was, putting that in motion and directing that be done when someone walked in and told me about the president's tweet. That sort of illustrates how disruptive these tweets can be.
The White House says the president wasn't bothered by Barr's comments at all, and he has the right, just like any other American citizen, to publicly offer his opinions. There's a bipartisan concern about Defense Secretary Mark Esper approving the diversion of Pentagon funds for construction of President Trump's border wall. In Munich this morning, Esper says border security is national security and the action is legal under the law. Democrat Richard Blumenthal with the Senate Armed Services Committee says the diversion of money is not only against our national security, it violates the law.
The administration is undermining our national security by diverting money from our national defense, where it's desperately needed, to a border wall that is wasteful and unnecessary.
Texas Congressman Mac Thornberry, the top Republican on the House Armed Services Committee, says it violates the separation of powers within the Constitution. China has reported another sharp rise in the number of people infected with the coronavirus as the death toll approaches 1,400. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. John, Tom, Lisa?
Michael Barr, thank you very much. That's your news, your headlines. Let's get you some price action, shall we? We are around about 1 hour and 45 minutes away from the opening bell in New York City. On the week, we are positive. On the session, we are too. Up 7 points, Tom. Positive 0.2% on the S&P 500.
Dollar DXY is not 98. It's 99.10. I'm sorry. This is of note, not again for one day, John, but for 2, 3, 4, 5 days. This is a dollar lift.
The highs of early October, 99.66. So we're not far off the highs at the back end of last year. Dollar strength, bit of story this week as the euro breaks down. Euro dollar today relatively unchanged. The euro against the dollar 108.43. And in the treasury market, to give you a feel of the 10-year yields coming down 2 or 3 basis points to 159, 1.59% on a US 10-year yield. This is Bloomberg.
With a Bloomberg Business of Sports report, I'm Michael Barr. Tokyo Olympic organizers reiterated their message at the start of the 2 days of meetings with the International Olympic Committee. The 2020 Games will continue as scheduled. It comes as the coronavirus is spreading from neighboring China. Organizing Committee President Yoshiro Mori told top IOC officials, "I would like to make it clear again that we are not considering a cancellation or postponement of the Games. The Olympics open in just over 5 months, and the torch relay begins next month in Japan." LeBron James tops the Instagram's NBA Rich list, beating Stephen Curry, Dwayne Wade, and Russell Westbrook. Among basketball players, LeBron James is not only king of the court, he's also the king of Instagram. According to data from Hopper HQ, the Los Angeles Lakers star makes more money per sponsored Instagram post than any other player in the NBA. And that is a Bloomberg Business of Sports report. I'm Michael Barr.
Message and data rates may apply. T&C and privacy terms can be found at babbel.com/terms. Please don't text and drive.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then try Babbel for free by texting EXPLORE to 64,000. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just text EXPLORE to 64,000 and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or text EXPLORE to 64,000 and try it for free. Text EXPLORE to 64,000.
Global News 20.
A half-price dream holiday. Wouldn't want to miss that. A takeaway for free. Wouldn't want to miss that. And 30 gigs data for just £10 a month on Smarty Mobile. You definitely don't want to miss that. Our Smarty SIM comes packed with 30 gigs of data and unlimited calls and texts for just £10 a month on a 1-month plan. That's why Smarty won Best Value SIM-only network in the USwitch Mobile Awards 2020. Don't miss out. Search Smarty Mobile. Smarty. Simple, honest mobile. Smarty.co.uk.
For up to 50% off selected floors and beds, and up to an additional £250 off your total flooring order. Carpet Right for life. Terms and conditions apply.
At the Bank of Santander, they've created Stan, a smart bot that can predict the future of remortgaging.
I'll read Stan. Will my mortgage rate go up?
1955 was the last time Newcastle won the cup.
No, and try not to mumble.
Playing, let's get ready to rumble.
Meanwhile, at Santander, they can't predict your future, but they'll help secure it with great mortgage rates fixed for up to 10 years. See what's possible at Santander.
Early repayment charges apply. Lending subject to status and criteria. Your home may be repossessed if you do not keep up repayments on your mortgage.
This is our story. The Birds of Prey. Roman is building an army. He's after all of us. We gotta clean the city from the inside out.
Critics are saying Margot Robbie is brilliant as Harley Quinn.
Hi, boys.
A fantastic assault on the senses. An irresistible riot of popcorn fun. Brilliantly acted and very funny. 4 stars. Birds of Prey. In cinemas now. Certificate 15.
24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow, and U.S. stock index futures are nudging higher this morning, along with European shares, as traders sort through contrasting data from China on how quickly the coronavirus is spreading. Oil holding well above now $52 a barrel in New York. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures up about 7 points. Dow futures up 34, and NASDAQ futures up 32. The DAX in Germany is up 0.2%. 10-year Treasury up 7/32. Yield 1.59%. Yield on the 2-year 1.42%. NYMEX crude oil is up 1.3% or 68 cents at $52.10 a barrel. COMEX gold little change at $15.78.80 an ounce. The euro 1.0844 against the dollar. British pound 1.3029, and the yen is at 109.84. Citigroup Global Chief Investment Strategist Stephen Whiting says the run-up in U.S. assets is well anchored.
While the U.S. is getting safe haven inflows from the rest of the world, you can take a look at both bonds and stocks in the United States. You can take a look at the U.S. dollar as evidence of that. This is an unlikely time for U.S. outperformance really to wane while these concerns are more centered in the rest of the world.
And again, Citigroup Stephen Whiting. And Tesla stock offering price of $767 per share. The company's market capitalization has climbed to almost $146 billion. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom, John, and Lisa.
Karen, thanks so much. You spoke earlier of Mr. Staley and the battles at Barclays dropping minutes ago. I haven't even had time to get it out, saying the last hour. Lisa Martinuzzi with a brilliant essay and summary of the successful operation known as the Union Bank of Switzerland. UBS doing well, Mr. Ermati after Mr. Tiam of Credit Suisse, and the battles at Barclays as well. The final paragraph, Elise, of your beautiful essay sums up Deutsche Bank, HSBC, Credit Suisse, Barclays, and UBS. I mean, I guess UBS is the only one left standing, but is the metaphor of this CEO anguish at all these banks, is it just about how lousy European banking is?
Well, it's a good question. I think, clearly a lot of these institutions are still trying to find, a way to restore profitability that will be sustainable, that investors will see as a reason to, push up that value. A lot of these banks are still trading well below book value, which of course makes, transactions more difficult if they were interested in them. So, yes, I think it's a reflection of just the preoccupations that have been on these institutions' minds.
But what's so important here, to your point of the essay, is it's just one person putting their pant leg or their dress on one leg at a time. Great. Are the boards really around for change at Credit Suisse, change at Barclays, change at UBS, et cetera, et cetera?
I think you're reading my mind, Tom. I think that is a very good question. I think, what we're seeing in some of these instances is the boards are not certainly moving as quickly as one might like them to, particularly when we've seen situations that have, undermined confidence in those institutions. And you're not seeing sort of the bold moves that you would expect, perhaps, so long after the financial crisis, in terms, bolder moves in terms of having the right people in place at the right time.
John, jump in here on this. You've lived this. You've actually been in the lobbies of these banks talking to these guys. What's the culture, John, you've observed at these boards?
Well, I remember sitting down with the chairman at Barclays HQ in the summer of 2015 when they let go of Anthony Jenkins, and quite clearly they wanted someone more aggressive to move faster. But Elisa, as you know, when you hire those kind of people, they can come with some baggage, can't they?
Yes, and that's what we're learning at the moment. But it does seem that there needs to be a more sort of thought through shift in the types of people that lead these organizations for the next 5 or 10 years. We've adjusted to a world of lower profitability, but really now the focus is going to be much more on technology, on data, how you manage this wealth of data that all these institutions are sitting on, and they're not making very good use of.
Elisa, there's a question though that's a larger issue as UBS, Credit Suisse, and Barclays perhaps considers their leadership. I'm curious, how much is this a leadership issue versus a structural issue in the Eurozone? Which bank in the European region is the example of doing it right now?
I think you've got a couple of things to bear in mind when you look at Europe. Particularly outside the UK, you do have a limited pool of individuals who can run these institutions because language, believe it or not, still plays a critical role. So you've got to be close to that culture, speak the language, whether you're in France or Germany, to be able to carry out that function of CEO. So that's worth bearing in mind. And I think you've had this very protracted period of slow returns, and the industry just hasn't been, as thriving as it was before the crisis. And I guess it's struggled to attract talent, and you're seeing the sort of the confluence of those two things.
Elisa, before we let you go, let's talk about UBS and who's going to take over there. There's a guy who used to run the investment bank that I imagine wishes he was still running the investment bank because he'd probably be in line. Andrea Orchel. Who do they hire and where does he come from? Where does she come from?
Well, I think that's what is up for grabs at the moment is the opportunity for them, given that they're not in the midst of a crisis. UBS is to sort of think really quite out of the box and look at the next 5 or 10 years. What is going to drive the business? It's not going to be in investment banking necessarily, and across all the businesses, it's really going to be technology, data, how you manage that data, and getting somebody perhaps from outside the financial services sector may not be a bad idea.
Thank you so much for joining us this week a number of times. Elisa Martinuzzi writing up. I'll get this out on all the social media. In the age of the robot banker, UBS needs a radical new boss. I liked your question. Remind me, the investment banker guy left UBS.
Andrea Orchel. He was meant to go and run Santander, and then that didn't quite work out for a whole bunch of reasons.
Full disclosure, folks, I can't keep up on European banking.
Isn't it sad, though? Andrea Orchel was in line to take over from Amotti. Gary Cohn was in line to take over from Blankfein. For these guys, it always feels like the guy at the top's never going to go, and then you leave, and the guy at the top starts talking about going.
The question I have is it a good job to be at the top of one of these banks right now, and there's so much pressure? And I got to say, the key question, how much can a leader do given some of the structural pressures? I'm looking at UBS and Credit Suisse shares since the past 2 years, both down more than 18%. And obviously this comes in an underperformance of banking shares.
Does the board care?
Does the board care that
the board of those banks care that the stock's down 18%? In the U.S., they'd be apoplectic.
I would imagine that they care.
John?
I imagine the Barclays board care, yeah.
I don't know. I'm asking.
That was something that was meant to be addressed.
I don't mean to be snide about it.
No, I'm not taking a question that way whatsoever. I can't be snide on
Valentine's Day. Excuse me.
Definitely not.
Honestly, it matters for, if no other reason, you get deferred compensation in shares for a lot of these banks, so it reduces or it increases your competitiveness when it comes to attracting talent. I mean, there is something very basic about that, in addition to sort of a check on the performance.
The board should care.
The profitability.
Let's
they ought to.
Put it that way. They should care. Problem with banking is that your first job as a banking CEO is often your last as well, isn't it?
It's brutal. I mean, I said this to Francine yesterday. I've never seen a time like this. You have 3 guys, and our body's more controlled. But it's bizarre. Absolutely bizarre. Futures up 8, Dow futures up 45. VIX, John Farrell has not mentioned VIX 1514, VIX 13.86, Dow closing 29,423. Don't forget your loved ones. John says, long-stemmed roses. This is Bloomberg.
This is our story. The birds of prey. Yeah. Roman is building an army. He's after all of us. We gotta clean the city from the inside out.
Critics are saying Margot Robbie is brilliant as Harley Quinn.
Hi, boys.
A fantastic assault on the senses. An irresistible riot of popcorn fun. Brilliantly acted and very funny. 4 stars. Birds of Prey. In cinemas now. Certificate 15.
It might still be cold and dark outside, but at least a new phone can brighten things up. You can get an epic iPhone 8 with a 12-megapixel camera at an epic price. At Tesco Mobile, you can get the iPhone 8 for only $19.99 a month. That's a saving of £90. So go in store or search Tesco Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Ends 23rd of February, saving £2.50 per month over 36 months. Was £22.49. 36-month credit and rolling monthly usage agreements required. Subject to status phase. Policy applies. See tescomobile.com/terms.
The moment you realise that radiator isn't warming up, it's chilly in London, and half the class are coming for a sleepover. The moment you realise you've got British Gas home care boiler cover from 46p a day, including parts and labour. So the moment you have a problem, make it our problem. And if you buy selected home care products online by the 24th of February, you'll get a gift card worth up to £75 to treat yourself. British Gas, here to solve. Search British Gas home care. Conditions apply. Prices vary by postcode.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip
Follow
Bayless.
at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
The 2020 NBA All-Star Game is live on TuneIn Premium. Catch every fast break, fadeaway, and alley-oop as Team LeBron and Team Giannis go head-to-head in Chicago.
Deep three, and in! Oh, man! 5 to shoot, LeBron long 3, good!
Which star will shine the brightest? Who will be named this year's MVP? Find out Sunday at 8 Eastern with ESPN Radio's live coverage of the NBA All-Star Game on TuneIn. Search Premium to upgrade today.
Like what you're listening to? Want to make getting back to it easier? Use the favorite button to keep track of the stations and podcasts you love on TuneIn. Just tap or click the heart icon to add it to your favorites. Then find all your go-to audio under the Favorites tab. Pretty easy, right? This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Major League Baseball is back. Are you ready to unlock the 2020 season with TuneIn Premium?
And this one is gone! It hits the foul pole!
Be there from day one with every single game of spring training, rivalry games, split squads, Cactus League, Grapefruit League. TuneIn Premium has it all. Then, when the pitch count starts for real, experience live and on-demand access to every game, everywhere you go, from opening day to the World Series. Don't miss out on the action. Search Premium to upgrade today.
Always talk about the losers in a trade war.
You benefit if you're just further away from China.
So that you can too.
What are the ramifications if she crumbles or doesn't crumble?
Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business, Radio.com, and iHeartRadio apps, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening. From the financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Surveillance Economics.
The good news is the economy is strong. The bad news is the economy is strong.
Financial crises take a really long time to recover from.
Finance.
The strong job market's pulling people back in.
You can't have for very long, monetary union without a fiscal union.
Investment.
What we preach is extreme diversification.
It's hard to have sustained productivity without capital investment.
Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Jonathan Farrow on Bloomberg Radio.
Good morning, everyone. John Farrow and Tom Keene. Lisa Bramowitz here today, looking very lovely. She's ensconced in red. She's killing it.
Do you want to get in trouble this morning?
She's killing it today on Valentine's Day. We say Valentine's Day to all of you. Boston, 106.1 FM, Bloomberg 1130 New York, Washington, 99.1. Is anybody in Washington doing Valentine's Day today?
Of course they are.
It's such a train wreck down there politically.
I just love that you said Lisa looks lovely and she took it as sincere.
She did.
I take it where I
you know
it's
her.
Like it's like that glow. It's that glow that, it's
I'm just like, what about? I'm going to take it as sincere because I want
Everything he says is disingenuous.
That's okay. I'm going to take it as honest. Why? Do you think that? Do you have something to say, John?
No, I'm just not going to judge your appearance.
It's Valentine's
on radio, on live radio.
Absolutely not.
Do you know
I'm
what
not in the business
Mrs.
of doing
Keenan
that.
does? She's demanded that we go to lunch at a restaurant. And I got out the GPS, and she's triangulated it. So for me to walk to the restaurant, I have to walk by Tiffany's. How do you do that? How strategic can you
Was that
be?
Mrs. Keene or was that Vet Bill?
That was Mrs. Keene. Vet Bill, a pound of Whitman's chocolates, loving it. You don't know what this is sad, Lisa. He doesn't know what Whitman's chocolates
Okay,
are.
you tell me what Whitman's chocolates are.
Midwest, yellow box, homespun. It's a whole
sounds amazing.
1910. Pollyanna. Watch Walt Disney Pollyanna.
Sampler
That's all you got.
print.
Sampler, exactly. Farm Girl knows this. Okay, where are we? Let's do the data check right now. Futures up 7. Dow futures up 34. John, seriously, one thing to note here is the VIX, 13.38. In the bull market, the VIX didn't want to come in. And it's come in the last couple of days to a less fearful statistic.
Nothing is shaking up this market, is it? Yields are coming down by 2 basis points to 159 on 10. Similar move on 2s to 142, call it 143. In foreign exchange, maybe that's the story at the moment. Everything being pushed through FX. The euro starting to break down. The Swissy testing some levels we haven't seen since 2015. The haven currency's doing well.
I'm struggling with the dissonance here of the everything rally and the flattening yield curve. And yes, I understand importing disinflation from overseas. That said, I am struggling to understand how this is supportive of risk assets over the long term.
Can we go, the late, great, always wonderful Ken Pruitt would say, guys, stop on the Turkish lira. Can we talk retail sales? And I mean, I'm sorry, in 28 minutes, we get a snapshot of retail America.
Yeah, I think this is probably the second most important data point for the United States, and for that matter as well for the global economy. The US consumer hasn't just held up the United States over the last 18 months. Arguably, it's been a pillar of the global economy as well because of its importance to the US economy.
And yet you're seeing businesses slow down their spending. You're seeing job openings fall to the lowest since the crisis. There's a question how much longer can they keep doing this? And you are seeing, and Tom, you talk about this all the time, the bifurcation between lower income and higher income Americans and the default rates and delinquencies picking up at the lower end.
Before we get to our important guest, guys, they're listening in St. Louis today. Good morning on Sirius XM Channel 119 in St. Louis. Riley from St. Louis emails in and says, more Stars Born. We were playing that. It's Valentine's Day, so we'll do some more Stars Born here this morning.
I cannot stand that song.
Come on. It was like 6 years ago. Gaga and Brad, and they were doing, it was like a big deal.
I still haven't watched that movie. I haven't seen it.
John, fly on any airplane, and if there's 12 seats around you, look at 8 of them, and they'll be watching the Stars.
That's where I watched it. I watched it on a flight.
You watched it on a plane?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Moving along.
Just look at his Gibson when he's on stage. It's a beautiful ES.
Okay. Carry on, please.
Henrietta Trey's with us. This is on Washington. And John, there's like 8 ways to go with Henrietta Trey's with Veda Partners. She's so competent about all this. Let me start with one. May I start with one idea, John?
Please, give me an idea.
How good a week has Senate Majority Leader McConnell had, Henrietta? With all the turmoil here, he's like the senatorial bastion for the president. Has Senator McConnell had a good week?
Morning, guys. I think Senator McConnell very often has good weeks. I think one of the best things about him is that he really knows how to set expectations and work with his caucus, and usually ends up on flying high at the end of the day. So that would be consistent with my experience.
Let me bring up another idea. The tension between the United States and China over the coronavirus really started to pick up.
Current.
I asked National Economic Council Director Larry Kudlow on Friday whether he trusted the data coming out of China regarding the coronavirus, and he couldn't give me a straight answer. A week later, Henrietta, he's being way more open about the lack of transparency that he thinks the US is getting from China. How much of an issue is that right now down in Washington?
Well, I'll loop that in with the previous question about Mitch McConnell and speak to what we're hearing from the Senate Republican caucus, which is that they are increasingly pressuring both the majority leader and the White House to be very upfront, not just about the coronavirus, but about the purchase commitments that China is going to be missing or meeting in the ones that they promised with the Phase 1 trade deal. So they have grown over, let's call it the last 3 weeks, increasingly anxious about the logistics around the purchase acquisitions on everything from soy to manufacturing, pork, et cetera. It's very important for, say, Joni Ernst, who's up for re-election in Iowa, Senator Tom Tillis is up for re-election in North Carolina, two huge pork-producing states, and they are going directly to the administration and to the majority leader saying, hey, we need a lot more information. Are you using the coronavirus as a crutch to fall back on in the event that China is going to be missing these purchase commitments, which we suspect that they will?
Well, Henrietta,
so I think the administration...
As you know, here's the problem. I've asked the administration the same question. I've asked them if they're setting themselves up for failure by still trying to commit to this agreement that they struck a couple of months back. The answer we're getting, though, is not just from the administration, it's the Chinese that continue to say they'll meet the agreement, they'll meet their economic targets. Henrietta, how likely is that?
Well, I think it's quite unlikely, and I think that's a big part of the reason why they didn't lay out exact specifics on what those targets were in a lot of different commodity cases. They've given us broad numbers. They've also given us a 2-year time horizon. The first basket is over a 1-year time horizon, and I think you get differing responses when you ask, say, a farmer or a congressman or a senator versus the administration or China on what it means to say that you're going to commit to making those purchases in year one. When does year one start? Does it start February 14th? Did it start back in December when they made the phase one agreement? The farmers are looking for purchases immediately. So I'm expecting that the White House is going to want to highlight any purchases made as soon as today, obviously the day the deal goes into effect, or in the next couple of days, to sort of start telegraphing, hey, we're in the right trajectory, even though by 12 months from now we may not have hit the full target for, say, pork exports or poultry or what have you. And I think that they're really giving them a lot of wiggle room and area to finesse, but the underlying issue is that Republicans, primarily from those farming states, are extremely anxious that they have overpromised and will now underdeliver, and that the administration is not giving them all the information they need either on the purchase side or the coronavirus side.
Henrietta, there is also a question here of how much tensions are ratcheting up between the U.S. and China, given the fact that these agreements have to be put into place now, and given the fact that China is not allowing U.S. specialists to come in and actually help with the on-the-ground effort to contain the coronavirus. Can you give us a sense of how much tensions are escalating behind the scenes between the Xi Jinping camp and the Trump camp?
My understanding is that the tensions are being exacerbated not necessarily by the two camps directly, but by the external pressures that other people who have, secondary effects of this trade war want to see happen. So I'm sure you're seeing, obviously, the escalation in rhetoric from the China hawks, the Marco Rubios and Rick Scotts of the world, who are getting all over the Huawei angle, the various federal agencies who are ratcheting up their focus on Huawei, and all those sort of externalities have had I don't know if you want to call it sort of like a vice force on the administration and in the United States and also in China to make sure that they stay in very close communication, are on the up, and are spreading that information to the best extent they can and to the extent they want to. But those people want information.
Henrietta, very quickly here, I don't even know how to place this because to me it's almost gossip. We got an administration where a lot of people left a year, 2 years ago, whatever, and now the president wants to come back. Hope Hicks and others are coming back. What does that mean to you as a Washington insider? What's its signal that the president's bringing back the old guard? I don't believe I've ever seen that.
This is just anecdotal from my part, but I know a lot of highly qualified Senate Republican counsel who have been working to get different jobs and are extremely qualified, say, in the U.S. Treasury or in federal agencies at the banking or financial sector. And instead of awarding those jobs to these highly competent folks who are ready to sort of level up, the administration has tightened its core group, and you have to be deep on the in. You have to be extremely trusted, full MAGA, in order to get a position now. And I think that's self-limiting, and they sort of have to go and recycle back through the folks that they've already seen.
Henrietta Trace, thank you so much. Veda Partners this morning.
Full MAGA. I thought it was CAG now. I thought it was Keep America Great.
CAGA. I didn't know that. I haven't heard that.
It's CAGA?
KAG. I thought it was KAG.
CAG?
Keep America Great.
Tom, what are you doing? Tom, what is going on? He just walked away. He's hanging out with Michael Barr doing selfies.
He's videoing the studio, and it will be on Twitter, I imagine, in the next couple of minutes, and no one knows what he's doing. So let's get to Michael Barr. Get some news, headlines worldwide. We can do that with Michael himself. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, John. Good morning, Lisa. Good morning, Tom. No fallout yet from Attorney General William Barr's unusual comments about the president. During an interview with ABC News, Barr says the president's tweets make it impossible for him to do his job in response to criticism of his handling of the Roger Stone case. Barr just spoke days after he overruled prosecutors on the amount of time the DOJ is expected to seek when Trump's longtime ally is sentenced.
The president does not like to be told what to do. He may not like what you're saying. Are you prepared for those ramifications?
Of course. But the thing I have most responsibility for are the issues that are brought to me for decision. And I will make those decisions based on what I think is the right thing to do, and I'm not going to be bullied or influenced by anybody.
Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal says in a tweet that what Barr is really saying, that can be translated to mean, is that I'm doing exactly what the president wants me to do, but just don't tweet about it. The deadly threat from the Islamic State was addressed at an international security conference in Munich today. Defense Secretary Mark Esper announced success in convincing NATO allies to provide more help countering the extremist group in Iraq and elsewhere.
It is imperative that we maintain unrelenting pressure on ISIS in Iraq and Syria, just as we help prepare the Iraqis to do so for the long term. Together, we have achieved tremendous success against ISIS, destroying its physical caliphate and liberating millions from its barbaric rule. But our work is not finished.
Nevada's Culinary Union says it will not endorse a Democratic presidential candidate ahead of the caucus on the 22nd. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. John, Tom, Lisa.
Michael Barr, thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much indeed. We are around about 15 minutes away, call it 17 minutes away, from retail sales in America, Tom Keene. That data point will be brought to you live on Bloomberg Radio.
Used to be an afterthought. It is not anymore, and I agree with you, John. Right now, on the dynamics of a sub 2% or at 2% economy, that 69% of the economy is ever more important.
Getting a read on the American economy going into a real growth scare out of China. And I think the data out of January really matters with that in mind.
You know, the Fed's a month away. I mean, it's not like there's a Fed meeting coming up. But to me, I agree with you. It's a bigger deal than normal. And you look at the control group where you take out a number of ideas.
In the markets then today, around about an hour and 15 minutes away from the opening bell, as Tom points out, March 18th is your next Fed meeting.
Is this Valentine's Day music?
No, I think this is my kind of music. Futures positive 6. This is Bloomberg Radio.
25 years ago, NJIT graduate Dick Sweeney co-founded Keurig Green Mountain, a company whose incredible innovations changed the way the world brews a cup of coffee. Today, he lectures widely on business leadership and is a strong advocate for NJIT's work to combine business education with the power of STEM.
NJIT is definitely fostering the innovative thinking for budding entrepreneurs simply because that's the world we live in. NJIT is producing students that have been trained, educated, and given the business acumen to be a contributor to a company. The distinct mission is to develop great STEM scholars. The attributes I've always looked for in team members are heart, smarts, guts, and luck. So we want people with passion, intelligence, courage, and never discount luck. The student coming out of NJIT has experienced all of that.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their businesses strategically, yet the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating system, you can. Go boldly toward change with SCI Investment Manager Services.
Determination and operational strength are both essential factors for growth in asset management. I'm
Steve Meyer, President, Head of SEI's Investment Manager Services Division. We know that disruptive forces create opportunities around the world. If you see potential in change, our industry specialists will maximize SEI's integrated platform of data and risk management, global investment operations, compliance support, and investor services to position your asset management business for success. Come grow with us.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/C's change.
Influential conversations from...
For centuries, Welsh farmers have been perfecting the balance between maintaining the spectacular landscapes of Wales while producing delicious lamb and beef. Lucky for us, we have everything we need from the elements: grass, rainwater, and a whole lot of pride. Sustainability is key as we continue to work in harmony with our surroundings to bring you a plate that's uniquely Welsh. It's in the taste. Learn more at eatwelshlamandwelshbeef.com.
For up to 50% off selected floors and beds, and up to an additional £250 off your total flooring order. Carpet Right for life. Terms and conditions apply.
Let's get this right, sir. You didn't see three men dressed as clowns take off in a van with a Renaissance painting because you were distracted by, and I quote, a sporty red compact SUV with a bold mesh grille, a sculpted bonnet with sweeping roofline on diamond-cut alloys.
And beautiful rear haunches.
So, you saw a Jaguar E-Pace. But what about the clowns?
What clowns?
Jaguar E-Pace, designed to steal attention. Search Jaguar E-Pace.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
Today at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow, and futures are higher this morning. We go to the First Word breaking news desk for today's morning call. Here's Bill Maloney. Bill, good morning.
And good morning, Karen. U.S. futures remain quiet since the last time we spoke, with Dow futures up 29 points, S&P's gained 6, and Nasdaq futures are also higher by 29. The U.S. 10-year yield at 1.6%. Gold is little change, and Shanghai rose 0.4% overnight. Well, U.K. markets are also quiet this morning. Back in the U.S. on the economic front at 8:30, retail sales, and at 10 o'clock, business inventories and Michigan sentiment. After the bell last night, NVIDIA Q4 revenue beat the highest estimates, and Roku revenue beat estimates. Shares are up 10% in the pre-market. In other news, Tesla offers 2.65 million shares at $767 a share. And in deal news, Instructure in a revised merger pact of $49 a share with Thoma Bravo. Wrapping things up, Mosaic was cut to neutral at Citigroup, BlackRock cut to hold at Deutsche Bank, and Zebra Technologies raised to overweight over at JP Morgan. Live from the First Breaking News Desk, I'm Bill Maloney. Karen?
Bill, thank you. To hear live breaking news over your Bloomberg, type squawk on your terminal, SQUAWK. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom, John, and Lisa.
Thank you so much. Okay, folks, it's Friday. It's Valentine's Day. And, of course, it's the kind of day where you confess your love and you maybe whisper secrets to each other.
I'm so worried.
I'm now going to confess a great truism of Wall Street. Equity, 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 stock market, stock market, stock market, stock market, and the adults look at bonds. This has been true, and the way you only learn this on Wall Street is to enjoy losing money with equity with analysis, knowing that the bond guys are 6 months out front with the correct research.
I'm sorry. This is the second
Amazon,
time
Lehman,
that you guys have put Valentine's Day and bonds in the same sentence.
Well, bonds are
it is a bond of love for life.
All right, carry on.
What do you get about this?
She's getting emotional, you know.
We're celebrating important bonds around the world.
We are important bonds, or at least 3 blocks to Tiffany's. Would you please bring our bond expert so we can talk about Tesla without being fixated on a parabolic stock? Thank you.
Joel Levington, Bloomberg Intelligence Director of Credit Research. Joel, understanding the Tesla capital structure, where the debt is, what kind of debt it is, I think it's really important and perhaps misunderstood by a lot of people at the moment outside of Wall Street. So let's talk about it. What do you see at the moment, Joel?
Sure. Well, the capital structure is about $13 billion worth of debt, 3 of which is convertible bonds, which are well in the money. And you're talking about a capital structure that is based on $145 billion of equity value. So the debt, while maybe about 4 times levered this year on an EBITDA basis, if you're thinking about it in terms of market cap, is actually quite modest.
Which is why we've seen a bit of a bid come into the bond market as this equity market is ripped and Tesla's got a much, much bigger equity cushion. My question to you, we've got to do a little bit of a bond clinic here. High yield bonds are callable.
Yes.
And Tesla's bonds have really, really rallied. Have we bumped up against that moment where they can't really rally much more from here?
Yeah, they are trading about a half a point away from the call, which is just under 104 in dollar price. And so the amount of upside there might be modest, especially when you consider its ratings of B minus, triple C or CAA1 or triple C plus over at Moody's.
Joel, do you think that's why the credit traded a little bit softer yesterday?
Yeah,
you got this capital call on the equity side, because that's counterintuitive for a lot of people. But I just wonder, with that in mind, it might raise the question as to whether these are going to get called later this summer.
You're totally right, John. I don't think that they will be called right away. But there were many clients that were asking about that very same question.
There's a real incentive for Tesla to do so. I'm looking right now at the 5.3% bonds due in 2025. 5.3% coupon, that's what Tesla's paying on this. The implied yield right now based on where it's trading is 4.6%. What I want to know is how realistic is it for Tesla to go out and raise new bonds and pay a much lower coupon given where the equity cushion has gone?
Much lower would probably be a euphemism. I don't think they could get a much lower coupon, but I really think if you listen to their strategy is to get rid of debt, right? If they were going to eliminate it, I think they would just pay it off with cash and not come back to the capital markets.
How are autos different? I mean, it's such a huge fixed cost issue. Kevin Tynan was in with us yesterday, I think it was brilliant about the production runs of the 2 major models are up and running and they're basically a sunk cost. When a bond pro like you looks at their debt need, their cash need, how is it different than other normal industries?
Well, Tom, you're totally right. And
Kevin, I do okay there?
Oh, you're always great.
Farrah and Lisa have been killing me all morning. I mean,
the 3 of you are always.
You're showing me massive love here. Okay, continue.
But
our bond can't be destroyed.
It's a bond. Yeah. Okay, go on. It's an exponential thing. Go.
My love for this show cannot be called. But
continue.
But what I would say is that with autos, the business risk is so high because there is such a high fixed cost nature of the manufacturing side that you have to have a very big liquidity buffer, because when cycles turn or when pricing turns on you, you can have a dramatic change in cash flow.
On a percent, to John's brilliant question on weighted average cost of capital, on a percent basis, what's normal bonds for autos versus normal, industrial industries?
I would say all else being equal, auto bonds tend to trade, especially in investment grade where you see most of the manufacturers, probably trade about 20 to 30 basis points wider simply because they're
They a higher yield because of their risk, because it's such huge fixed cost.
That's exactly right. And you'll see that with other sectors too, like metals and mining.
Good morning, Zvi Vodi up in Boston.
Let's pick a single name out, though. Let's take Ford.
Yes.
Triple B.
Yes.
But the yield very close to where Tesla trades.
Yes.
Triple C.
Yes.
What's going on there?
Well, the market reads through ratings and goes to risk, right? And with Ford, you have a company that has been hurting, obviously had a change in management this week, and is not generating cash flow and has a huge captive finance company that constantly has to come back to market, which puts a technical pressure on their bonds.
Given where the share prices of Tesla are trading, is Tesla done with the bond market? Do they not have to go to the bond market anymore? Can they just do additional share sales?
That's quite a possibility. And I think if you listen to Elon Musk, he is not interested in having a lot of debt. And, as long as your stock price is high, why not improve your capital structure when you have a chance? Although in this case, they're really doing it for CapEx reasons. So it's a good kind of growth, right? It's the kind of investment that I think equity people want to see happen.
Joe Leviton, thank you so
Joe.
much. Just brilliant. Love it. Now, right there, folks, you see the bond nuance there, looking at yields and comparative within a sector. Folks, for those of you with a Bloomberg in your car, WACC is a terminal function.
Who's got that Bloomberg?
And please do not crash.
Huh?
Bloomberg terminal that they're going to check
No, the
while
driver
they drive?
drives. You know, you sit in the
Cool
back
if you could
and
have
you
a
do your
terminal
terminal.
on that nice little tablet in a Tesla, though, wouldn't it? That would be very cool.
I don't know. I got two big screens in the back of the Bentley, and it really works.
Can we go back
That's
to the long
because you're
stem roses?
driven and you don't drive.
Okay, but
That's
still,
the key
it
distinction
works.
there, isn't it?
TSLA Equity WACC. Look it up in the back of your car.
What is this?
This is Joel insisted on this. Happy Valentine's Day.
This is to celebrate our bond.
Don't take it away from me because you don't know.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
Imagine being denied an apartment because of your religion, or your race, or because you have children, or a disability.
It's so wrong. Yes, but who has the power to stop this?
You do. Each of us has the power. The law is on your side. It's illegal for landlords to discriminate because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, or familial status. If you suspect that you have experienced housing discrimination, file a complaint with HUD immediately so we can investigate it. Fair housing is your right.
Use it.
To learn more, visit HUD.gov/fairhousing. That's HUD.gov/fairhousing. Or call 1-800-669-9777. 1-800-669-9777. A public service message from HUD in partnership with the National Fair Housing Alliance.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute.
Hey, have you heard? The Mayor of London has launched his latest van scrappage scheme to help tackle London's toxic air. Small businesses or sole traders like me with a polluting van could now get £7,000, which you could use to trade up to a Euro 6 vehicle. And you could get an extra £2,500 towards running costs if you go electric. The scheme is now even easier to qualify for, and it's open to any businesses with up to 50 employees, like mine. So, I'm going to search TfL scrappage to see if I'm eligible and apply. You should do the same. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
At the Bank of Santander, they've created Stan, a smart bot that can predict the future of remortgaging.
I'll read Stan. Will my mortgage rate go up?
1955 was the last time Newcastle won the cup.
No, and try not to mumble.
Playing, let's get ready to rumble.
Meanwhile, at Santander, they can't predict your future, but they'll help secure it with great mortgage rates fixed for up to 10 years. See what's possible at Santander.
Early repayment charges apply. Lending subject to status and criteria. Your home may be repossessed if you do not keep up repayments on your mortgage.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
From New York City, this is Bloomberg Surveillance for our audience worldwide. We're live on Bloomberg Radio. Equity futures up 6 positive 0.2% with your economic data, your retail sales print. Here's Vinny, Dow Dice.
Okay, Jonathan, fourth straight monthly increase in retail sales, a sign that consumers hanging in there at the start of the new year. Up 0.3% in January retail sales, up 0.3% faster than the prior month, excluding, I got my eyes, I'm getting old, excluding autos, also up 0.3%, excluding gasoline and autos, up 0.4%. But the control group, which a lot of people look at because it cuts through everything, unchanged. So, generally speaking, a strong report for that may be petroleum prices falling. Import price index, meantime, unchanged. Again, you got to look at energy. The strong dollar still on the agenda, on deck. Industrial production, business inventories, University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Index. I'm Vinny Delchulas, Bloomberg Radio. Have a good weekend.
Vinny, thanks so much. The yield comes in off the control group, which is not only flat 0.0, but the revision, John, is a huge deal, 0.5 down to 0.2. And I saw the 10-year yield give way. It was 159.160, and we're now a 158 handle on 10-year.
This is your input into GDP. Widely considered to be a better read of underlying consumer demand. It strips out a whole load of things.
Yeah.
Seeing it at zero is not great.
I read about it years ago, but folks, to be honest, I got a real faith in the control group. As Vinny says correctly, it takes out a lot of noise. And you just wonder, it's all marginal, what it does to different houses' marginal enthusiasm. John, Deutsche Bank, I would say, has always been an inherently optimistic house, and that changed 8 months ago with a subdued, two-ish call.
So let's talk about the data, shall we, and bring in Torsten Slok of Deutsche Bank, Chief Economist. Torsten, fantastic to have you with us on the programme. Let's just talk about the data itself before we continue. The control group versus the headline print. Torsten, what should we read into each?
So the control group is what goes into GDP. And what's important about that is that when you have had a very strong labor market in January, then it's a little bit puzzling why consumption would be slowing down like that. So the key issue continues to be whether there is any inconsistency between the labor market indicators and what's going on the consumer side. And it does look like, from at least at the first glance here, that it's a little bit worrying that consumption has weakened down.
So Matt Lazzetti and you are going to sit down and, he's going to do the work. You're the big star now, Torsten, so you're just going to bark at him. But you guys are going to do the partial differentials of those equations. How important is the marginal weakness in the control group to the calculation of Y equals C plus I plus G plus the net export mess?
It is very important because, as usual, we should always remember that consumption is 70% of GDP. That doesn't mean that the other components, capex spending in particular, which is 15% of GDP, is not important because consumer spending is normally more stable. So if you look at the cyclical components of GDP, then consumption normally is split into the durables and non-durables part. But generally speaking, to your question, consumer spending is very critical because simply it is such a significant share at 70% of the economy.
10-year 159 down to 158. I just printed a 157 handle. Lisa.
Yeah, you're seeing it in the same kind of move. On the 2-year, Torsten, I want to connect the line from the job market to consumption to retail sales. And you put out a really interesting chart today about how the job openings have been falling at the fastest rate since the financial crisis, paired with the S&P 500 reaching new highs. Can you draw the line from what we're seeing in retail sales to the jobs market and sort of the feedback loop there?
So what we have worried about for a while, and as Tom was saying, is that the labor market is looking at a number of different indicators underneath the headline to be a little bit more like it's slowing down. Most importantly, wage growth has started to top out and slowly move sideways, and some indicators begin to move a bit down. But more worryingly, indicators we got earlier this week, namely job openings. Job openings is now falling at the fastest rate since the financial crisis. This is a leading indicator for what's happening in the labor market. So we are beginning to wonder, maybe there is something underneath the labor market that is beginning to look a little bit weaker. And of course, you start asking, what could it be, the reason why the labor market would be slowing down? And there could be two reasons. One reason could be either that we're getting to the tail end of the corporate tax cuts. Remember, a fiscal lift always has a temporary effect and always has a temporary boost that lasts. In this case, it lasted for 5-6 quarters. So maybe we're no longer seeing that boost from the corporate tax cut. Alternatively, the second explanation is that maybe in an election year where we could either get more business regulation or we could get more trade war, maybe businesses are beginning to pull a little bit back because there is just more uncertainty maybe on the horizon. It's a bit more cloudy, the outlook, than what it has been for the last several quarters.
Torsten, it's still early days. We don't have a huge amount of data to go on to say with conviction that we've started to see a cyclical peak in the labour market and we're starting to roll over. It's a few months of data. I would point to initial jobless claims, Torsten, and just ask you the question, is that the guide for where we are in the labour market at the moment? And given the fact that we're still down near 200k, is the coast clear to some degree?
For now, it looks like the coast is clear, but the horizon, if you will, for that view is a little bit shorter. My colleagues, Matt Lucetti, Brett Ryan, and Justin Whitener, basically did a very interesting study, which exactly found that the best leading indicator still is jobless claims. It actually outperforms, from a forecasting perspective, some of the other indicators, including the SAM rule and other indicators that try to predict whether a slowdown is coming or not. So you're right. The weekly data we have from the labor market through jobless claims, it does send a strong signal. So in that sense, yes, it is still looking like things are okay for now, but we are still watching very carefully when some indicators like job openings is slowing down as much as it is.
Torsten, my head is spinning. Okay, I've got retail sales soggy, and I got the 10-year in, it's out at 158. I've got claims, John, which are better than ever. I mean, back to the polka when they were playing out west in 1969-70. And I've got no wage growth, and you're telling me, Torsten, there's no inflation out there. How do you put that together for a GDP call at Deutsche Bank? I mean, what's your view 12 months forward on GDP, given this incredible soup we're swimming in?
So the really good answer to that question is that, let's do a review of Fed policy, because we don't understand, meaning the Fed, the market, really, nobody has a good idea why inflation is so low. The unemployment rate is at the lowest level in 50 years, and you're seeing wage growth at the bottom of the income distribution has been accelerating, but in aggregate, in particular, wage growth for the higher parts of the income distribution has not been growing very strongly. In aggregate, there's very limited wage growth, which has basically led the Fed to the conclusion, maybe because of this limited wage growth, maybe we do have more room to lower interest rates. So let's do a review, which will come out, as we know, by the middle of this year, and try to figure out, maybe we can actually allow rates to be lower.
What he just said there is critical. By the middle of this year, does Chairman Powell have that luxury, Lisa? That's what that's what I find fascinating, is does Madame Lagarde have that luxury? Does Chairman Powell have that luxury?
It's a good question, because they have to move ahead of the actual downturn that they actually see in order for it to see back and prevent. That's the theory. The other question and the theory is that we're in a Goldilocks kind of period, and it seems increasingly tense given the fact that we're seeing a slowdown in job openings, and we're seeing retail sales, at least in the control group, come in a little bit softer. Torsten, how long can we be in a Goldilocks period?
Well, if I look at my Bloomberg screen and I type ECFC go, then I will see what consensus expectations are to the U.S. economic outlook. And if you click on the quarterly profile, it's just absolutely stunning that the consensus is completely flat, 1.9 for the next 6 quarters on GDP growth, and also exactly 1.9 for inflation, meaning core PCE. So we are, half-jokingly said, we are in a 1.9 economy where everything is flat in terms of inflation, everything is flat in terms of GDP outlook. There is a number of risks on the horizon, not only virus, which is, of course, what we spend most of our time on at the moment, but also risks in terms of election, risks in terms of what's happening with the slowdown in Germany, risks in terms of all the other issues that have been on the agenda in terms of debating the outlook.
Torsten, this is great. I've never seen this function before, or ECFC Go. Down at the bottom of it, it's got a 10-year yield at 2.12% out a bunch of years. Torsten, is that even feasible? We could get out to a ginormous 212?
So that's the wonders of that screen, namely that it shows you also expectations of what the Fed will do from the consensus and what 10-year rates will do. And as you know, another chart that I send you once in a while is that the consensus always has the view that rates are going up. And that is often, of course, wrong, and we're debating now, is that likely? And with this scenario that we're debating also about the downside risks, it does look like there's more downside risk to rates than there's upside risk.
Torsten, I know it's been a mediocre interview because John Farrow didn't participate. He's over-calculating 4 dozen long-stem roses.
I've told you the function ECFC every week for about 5 years.
It's a
I
great
know.
function.
Get out of the kitchen. Okay. But, John, 4 dozen roses. Did you get it down to $6 a stem?
Why are we talking about this? So, Austin, we're going to leave it there. Great to catch up with you.
Thank you so much. Greatly appreciate it. I really want to say Matt Lazzetti's just killed it, as the U.S. economist for Deutsche Bank, is they really shifted down towards that 1.9% number. 4 dozen roses, $6?
Futures
$6.50 a
rolling
stem?
over a little bit, Tom. Let's point that out, shall we? Off session highs, we're still positive, but only by 2 points. And I think a lot of people picking up on what you picked up on immediately when you shouted to me, control group, and it comes in dead flat. And it's regarded as a better read of underlying consumer demand. Yeah. It's your input into GDP, and it's stagnated in the month of January.
Shout out to a gentleman by the name of Carlos Torres, who for years ran a lot of our data with Alex Tanzi. And what we have here in front of us, folks, for those of you that aren't familiar with the Bloomberg terminal, is we'll go, the jobs report, and the unemployment rate is 3.7%. But we're looking at 20 and 30 other data points that give color to it. And then, and Lisa, I saw this today. I'm sorry, the retail report comes out in a launch pad on the Bloomberg, lights up like a candle.
Well, downgrade also of the revisions, and I think that's also important for the control group. The downgrade there, 0.2% from 0.5%, considerable.
I think if you get your florist away from Hudson Yards and you go farther north, up by the fairway that's going out of business.
You're going to see how uncomfortable you can make them, aren't you?
You are telling me so much about how little you've done, because you're talking about me so much,
Michael
which means
Barr,
you have done absolutely nothing.
Let's get saved.
You've done nothing. You've done nothing.
Michael,
you've done nothing.
Michael, let's get some
Michael
news.
Barr's done nothing either.
Michael, let's do something.
Very much, you all. The White House is saying they still have full confidence in Attorney General William Barr, despite his comments about the president. During an interview with ABC News, Barr says Trump's tweets make it impossible for him to do his job in response to criticism of his handling of the Roger Stone case. Senator Richard Blumenthal is among Democrats calling for Barr to resign for overruling prosecutors and called for a lighter sentence for Trump's longtime ally.
The plain fact is that Attorney General Barr knows what Trump wants. He's doing exactly what Trump wants.
Stone is set to be sentenced next week following his conviction last year on 5 counts of lying to Congress, witness tampering, and obstruction of a congressional investigation. The number of coronavirus cases has risen to more than 64,000 worldwide after China reported another major increase at the epicenter of the outbreak following a change in how authorities there diagnose cases. The global death toll is now close to 1,400. There's a Diva Curl backlash. The hair care product, once heralded as a champion of natural hairstyle movement, has opened salons across the U.S., but now it's facing a lawsuit from a group of consumers. According to the class action lawsuit filed in New York, regular use of the product causes hair loss and other adverse effects. Alicia Malik is part of the suit.
My Instagram was lacking. I wasn't posting anything, so I would start getting stressed out about it. Because, this is one of my sources of income.
Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts, more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. John.
They do a Detroit Lions women's team colored zip satchel purse in blue.
Did you see it, the Donnie and Burke? It's
$148.80. Yeah. It's on sale and it ships free.
It is free.
Oh, good.
2-hour shipping.
The problem is that Mrs. Barr is a 49ers fan.
Yeah, she'll throw that out of the house.
And she's not happy, and he still hasn't bought her any roses.
He's vicious. That's cruel. That's cruel.
That's what I hear.
It is mean.
This is your Bloomberg Real Estate Report. I'm Denise Pellegrini. If you've ever bought or sold property, you probably already know it's not exactly a relaxing thing to go through.
So a Zillow survey found that 77% of Americans who've gone through the home buying process with a significant other in the past decade say they argued about it.
And Amanda Pendleton, lifestyle expert at Zillow, says it's even worse for sellers.
71% say they argued over that process.
Pendleton says certain things are hot-button issues for buyers.
Most disagreed over the size or the style of home to buy, so different tastes. And then nearly half disagreed over a home's must-have features or deal breakers.
Sellers have other worries.
A majority fought about money. So we're talking about what price to list the home for, whether to drop the price, and whether or not to accept an offer.
And Pendleton says if you're about to go through the process with a significant other, talk about all these things first. And that's your Bloomberg Real Estate Report. I'm Denise Pellegrini.
Why do hedge funds and other alternative managers rely on Pershing for a highly personalized experience? Mark Alderati, a managing director at BNY Mellon's Pershing and head of Prime Services, explains.
In today's fast-paced environment, where the only constants are change and volatility, you need a prime broker who's both steady and agile, focused on supporting your needs so that you can focus on growing your business and producing results. Exceptional client service and advocating for our clients is at the core of what we do. Our award-winning high-touch team is just one of the benefits of working with BNY Mellon. We help alternative investment managers create great experiences for their clients. Whether it's customized financing, securities lending solutions, platform access, or outsourced trading, BNY Mellon's Pershing is a prime broker who's committed to this business and dedicated to meeting your evolving demands.
To learn more about the unique and industry-leading solutions for hedge funds and other alternative managers, visit Pershing.com. Pershing LLC. Member FINRA, NYSE, SIPC.
Connecting decision makers to a network of new.
I am a force for good.
I am a force for courage.
And for calm.
I am a force for safety.
For fairness. For leadership.
I am a force for the future.
For compassion.
For my community.
I am a police officer. And I am a force for all.
Be one of the 20,000 new police officers and be a force for all that you believe in. Search Join the Police.
TSB's Fix and Flex loan offers one of the best rates you can get. 2.9% APR representative fixed for up to 5 years. And the freedom to pay more whenever you want, or even take a break if you like. Because no one can really predict what the future holds. On loans from £7,500 to £25,000, subject to status, UK residents only, over 21. Based on de facto data January 2020. Up to 2 repayment holidays a year subject to approval.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit tunein.com/premium to upgrade.
Breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. U.S. retail sales rose in January for a 4th straight month as cheaper prices at the gas pump encouraged Americans to spend on other goods, underscoring steady consumer spending. The value of overall sales climbed 0.3% after a downwardly revised 0.2% increase the prior month. U.S. stock index futures are now little changed, giving up their gains. So are stocks in Europe, and we check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures are down a point this morning. Dow futures down 32. NASDAQ futures up 3. The DAX in Germany, little change. 10-year Treasury up 12/32. The yield 1.57%. Yield on the 2-year 1.41%. NYMEX crude oil is up 1% or 49 cents at $51.91 a barrel. And COMEX gold is up about 0.3% or $4.30 at $15.8320 an ounce. The euro 1.0852 against the dollar. British pound 1.3014. And the yen is at 109.76. Citigroup Global Chief Investment Strategist Stephen Whiting says the run-up in U.S. assets is well anchored.
While the U.S. is getting safe haven inflows from the rest of the world, you can take a look at both bonds and stocks in the United States. You can take a look at the U.S. dollar as evidence of that. This is an unlikely time for U.S. outperformance really to wane while these concerns are more centered in the rest of the world.
Stephen Whiting is heard earlier on Bloomberg Surveillance, and that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and Lisa.
Karen, thanks so much. Again, yields in off that great data check by Karen Moscow. Yields in the 10-year to 4 digits, 1.5746. Soggy control retail sales, if you're just joining us. This is a joy. Here's what we try to keep our promises, and we were freezing on the deck in Davos with Jason Bordoff of Columbia University, and because of news flow and breaking news or whatever, we shortchanged him on time, and we begged him to try to do more with us when he was back at Columbia University in New York, and we're thrilled Thrilled he could join us this morning. And what we're going to do, folks, is sort of adapt to the news, which is it's Valentine's Day. Perfect, Lisa. Promises kept.
Bonds.
We're going to talk about big oil. We're going to talk about how they're adapting to the zeitgeist, and can they keep promises. Jason Bordoff is with Columbia. He's President, Senior Director for Energy and Climate Change, works with the National Security Council, and is truly one of the leading voices on energy and climate in America. Jason, BP came out with a massive splash. It had a whole PR feel to it. How do they make those promises? They're going to be carbon free, whatever. How do they make those promises and then actually execute?
Well, those are the details thanks for having me on. Those are the details we're waiting to hear from them about exactly how they're going to do that. It was a significant announcement. They went further than most other companies because they said that they would actually bring to net zero by 2050 the emissions from the use of all the oil and gas they produce, not just what they emit, but what happens when we put it into our cars and everything else. So how do you do that? You can capture the CO2 and store it. You can maybe offset it with trees or carbon removal, or you produce a lot less oil and gas and a lot more of something else like renewables. So they're fundamentally promising to be a very different kind of energy company in 2050. Then the question is, how do they achieve that, and how do they do it in the way that delivers the kind of returns and dividends that people expect?
A whole bunch of questions here. Professor Bordoff, do they have a model to work on? I mean, is this original execution, or is somebody in some other area actually accomplished this before?
Well, we've seen companies like the Danish oil and natural gas company that became Ørsted. They became a renewables company. The scale of a company like BP, Shell, Total, these are so massive. They have the project management expertise, the capital budgets, the R&D, the engineering resources to develop the kind of solutions we're going to need to really achieve deep decarbonization. It's not just about solar and wind. If you want to think about how you're going to do airplanes or heavy trucks or the industrial sector, we're going to need hydrogen, carbon capture, ammonia, a host of solutions. But you need companies at that scale to deliver.
Professor, on Wednesday, House Republicans began revealing their plan to combat climate change. And it was sort of this concession to especially younger voters, even within the Conservative Party, that they had to sort of change their stance a bit. Did you have a chance to sort of look through it? Do you have a sense of what they're proposing?
Yeah, I do, and it's encouraging to see Republicans in the U.S. responding to the rising pressure among especially younger generation on both sides of the aisle, more on the Democrats, but really on both sides, to recognize the urgency of the climate challenge. I think it is clearly not enough. It has a heavy focus on innovation and investing in R&D, and that's going to be important, but market forces alone are not going to deliver the solutions we need. As much as we've seen a reduction in U.S. emissions because of shifting from coal to gas, cheap natural gas has done that without much policy. We're going to need a lot stronger policy support to put a price on carbon or do something else to drive this transition.
So given that, how big of a shift is this for Republicans in the House who have traditionally been associated with climate change denial and certainly President Trump's stance here? How big of a shift is it to see them actually proposing anything at all?
I think it's a shift, and it's a very encouraging one, and it's a recognition that people widely recognize that climate change is a reality. It's an urgent problem, and we all need to work together toward a solution. But again, we're not yet at a level where we're taking the scale of the challenge seriously. But, these things change gradually and change over time. In the Senate, in the House.
We got some technical difficulties here. I think we're going to have to leave it there. Jason Bordoff with us with Columbia University. Something down the line to challenge. We're thrilled that he was with us, of course, Senior Director for Energy and Climate Change as well at Columbia University and SEPA Center on Global Energy Policy. A lot to talk about there. Lisa, my major take on this after going to Davos is the talk is all ramped up. And the executing of this by certain groups, not just corporations in general, but the execution of these hopes by big oil is going to be really interesting to watch. I mean, as he mentioned, their size is huge.
Especially because a lot of people agree with what Jason was saying, which is that it's not enough to curb emissions. You have to come up with new innovations to actually reduce what we have currently in the environment and sort of create a new seismic shift in how we deal with these.
Do you take profit with you while you have your seismic shift?
Arguably, they're going to have to address this one way or another because there's been enough pushback from investors and certainly in their share price due to some of the structural changes in the view on climate change.
BP, they've taken $1, they bring 27% gross profit, maybe 12, 13 cents on the dollar. EBITDA down to net income. After all of it, it's a 4 cents on the dollar business. So I really wonder about profitability with some of these shifts.
Although if you take a look at the solar industry and how many people they're employing in the United States and you see what the wages are there, it has shifted. So you could argue that perhaps if you're on the innovative side of that, perhaps profits will continue on that front as well.
Well, it'll be a theme for us certainly forward, and we thank many guests, particularly at the World Economic Forum meetings, for perspective on this. I got a mixed market, green and red on the screen. In the bond market, it's just simple. Yields have come in off a retail report. Headline numbers actually not all that bad. That control group, that adjustment for variability, not so good. The 10-year yield, 1.58%. Please stay with us. Another hour of Bloomberg surveillance.
Message and data rates may apply. T&C. Coming soon, Ricochet, the new action film written by, directed, and starring Euro Millions winner Timothy Barker, with music by Timothy Barker.
This Friday's Euro Millions jackpot is a massive £14 million. That's dream come true money. Euro Millions from the National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Estimated jackpot. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Hey, have you heard? The Mayor of London has launched his latest van scrappage scheme to help tackle London's toxic air. Small businesses or sole traders like me with a polluting van could now get £7,000, which you could use to trade up to a Euro 6 vehicle. And you could get an extra £2,500 towards running costs if you go electric. The scheme is now even easier to qualify for, and it's open to any businesses with up to 50 employees, like mine. So, I'm going to search TfL Scrappage to see if I'm eligible and apply. You should do the same. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
This is our story. The Birds of Prey. Yeah. Roman is building an army. He's after all of us. We gotta clean the city from the inside out.
Critics are saying Margot Robbie is brilliant as Harley Quinn.
Hi, boys.
A fantastic assault on the senses. An irresistible riot of popcorn fun. Woo! Brilliantly acted and very funny. 4 stars. Birds of Prey. In cinemas now. Certificate 15.
Suffering from house embarrassment? At Wix, there's buy one, get one half price on all interior paint, including Dulux. Ends Monday. Terms apply.
Okay, Sergey, screen 4. What are we watching?
It's a surprise.
What? Where are we? Oh, who's this woman? Is this a musical?
What is this vision I see in front of me?
Could this be my moment? It's happened finally.
Sergey, we both know you don't have the vocal range for this. Enjoy endless adventures with 2-for-1 cinema tickets from Meerkat Movies when you buy through Compare the Market.
Qualifying purchases Tuesdays or Wednesdays. Participating cinemas, 2 standard tickets only. Cheapest ticket free. T's and C's apply.
The moment you realise that radiator isn't warming up, it's chilly in London, and half the class are coming for a sleepover. The moment you realise you've got British Gas home care boiler cover from 46p a day, including parts and labour. So the moment you have a problem, make it our problem. And if you buy selected home care products online by the 24th of February, you'll get a gift card worth up to £75 to treat yourself. British Gas, here to solve. Search British Gas Home Care. Conditions apply. Prices vary by postcode.
The B&Q 3-for-2 paint offer is now on. Get an unmissable 3-for-2 on coloured emulsions such as Dulux, Farrow & Ball and Valspar. Don't miss out on this show-stopping deal. Get to B&Q. You can do it when you're 3-for-2 it. Excludes white and ready mixed trade. Every third item per single transaction is descending price order free. Offer ends 24th of February. See DIY.com. Good book. Refreshing drink. 6 degrees outside. 35 in here. This really is the life.
Could the gentleman in aisle 2 please remove himself from the hot tub?
So much for try before you buy.
Well, at Ford, you can. Test drive and purchase any new Ford car or commercial vehicle this February, and we'll give you an additional £500 off the recommended retail price. Search Ford Test Drive Promotion. Retail and small business customers only. Contract and registered by 29th of February 2020 at participating Ford dealers. Excludes Ford scrappage.
Users in a trade war.
You benefit if you're just further away from China.
So that you can too.
What are the ramifications if she crumbles or doesn't crumble?
Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business, Radio.com, and iHeartRadio apps, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening. From the financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Surveillance Economics.
I think the U.S. is going in for a couple of years of very, very strong growth.
The deficit by early in the next decade will start to become a real problem for the markets.
Finance.
The consumer is really strong right now.
We don't realize how good times are now.
Investment.
The biggest problem that people have in investing in stocks is that they get out of the market.
It's not supposed to be easy. Anyone who finds it easy is stupid.
Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Good morning, everyone. Tom Keene, Paul Sweeney, Valentine's Day. And we say good morning to all of you. The heartbreak across the country. Good morning, Sirius XM, Channel 119 around the world, our digital product as well. Thank you for listening this morning. Lots of news flow, lots of different stories, Paul. You got the Washington story, and we'll, touch with Margaret Brennan here, with the Attorney General here in a moment. A number of other stories in Washington. But in our world, I look at retail sales, and, they just simply didn't happen. I mean, the control group is really, really soggy.
Yeah, it's and that's a kind of a key issue, Tom, for this economy, right? Because we've had manufacturing contracting or right near contraction. We've had business investment spending sluggish over the last year. It's really been the consumer pulling this economy through. So to the extent you have any pullback from the consumer, that is a concern. So we'll have to pay attention to those retail sales and the consumer.
Tesla shares done. John Farrell got his 8,000 shares. Good. With our equity update. Here's David Wilson. David.
Well, Tom, we can note that Tesla is down 3% in the wake of this share sale. Stock at $767 a share. Actually, Tesla's trading at $780 right now, so it's holding up relatively well. We should note that the price of the share sale was actually right around where Tesla closed on Wednesday. So it was up yesterday. You get a discount on the shares, and so it's
almost
pretty
a
much
5% discount on those shares coming out.
Right. It depends on where your reference point is, I suppose. We're talking about the equivalent of a 1.4% stake, by the way. But then we've got to move on to NVIDIA. The shares were up 6.5% in early trading. Fourth quarter revenue at the chip maker beat analysts' highest estimate in the Bloomberg survey. Earnings top projections. It's all about demand for chips that go into data center equipment. So cloud computing, definitely a plus for NVIDIA. And streaming video is part of that, too. Roku up 8%. The streaming video service had a narrower fourth quarter loss and higher revenue than analysts expected. The number of active accounts rose 14% to 36.9 million, which also beat projections.
Every time you come in about Roku, it's either plus 8 or 9% or minus 8 or 9%.
Absolutely. It's definitely a volatile stock. And, of course, now you've got volatility in a sense with the emergence of Disney Plus.
That's right.
And more streaming services to come, so we'll see how Roku benefits from that. And it's a positive day for pot stocks. Canopy growth, a big reason why. The share's up 24.5%. The Canadian marijuana producer posted fiscal third quarter results. Canopy had a narrower loss and higher revenue than analysts predicted. More pluses on earnings. Expedia Group's up 12%. The online travel agency's profits surpassed estimates for the fourth quarter after coming up short in the third quarter. Expedia predicted this year's profit will increase by a double-digit percentage. And GoDaddy's up 6%. The web services company's fourth quarter revenue surpassed the highest analyst estimate, though earnings were lower than projections. On the deal front, you have Instructure, most active stock in early trading, up 4%. The educational software maker accepted a $2 billion takeover offer from private equity firm Thoma Bravo after the price was raised for the second time. Now, Instructure rejected the first sweetened offer yesterday. Thoma Bravo came back with a higher price. Instructure said, okay. You've got FireEye down 1%. The cybersecurity company's lower after rising yesterday by 4.8%. That advance followed a report from Spain's OK Diario that Cisco Systems planned to take over offer. Now, a person familiar with the matter said there was no truth to that report, and the companies themselves declined to comment.
Two more.
All right. Let me just do a quick run through here. Network equipment maker Arista Networks down 8.5%. Consumer review website Yelp down 10%. The Russian internet company Yandex lower by 3%. And Smile Direct Club down 4%. The online seller of teeth aligners was the topic of a critical report by NBC Nightly News.
There we go. David Wilson, thank you so much. To get his perspective on Washington, it is a joy on Fridays to turn to the host of Face the Nation. You can see it on CBS Television Network Sunday morning, hear it on Bloomberg Radio in the afternoon. It has been an extraordinary week for those that cover politics 24/7, and that, of course, includes Margaret Brennan. Margaret, let me quote from the latest, I believe the latest news story. Quote, "This doesn't mean that I do not have, as president, the legal right to do so. I do, but I have so far chosen not to." I looked at the president's tweet here moments ago, and this is, of course, on Attorney General Barr, but I don't even know what he means or what he's talking about. Margaret, let's cut to the chase with your wonderful Justice CBS reporting. What is the relationship this morning of the President of the United States and his Department of Justice?
Well, the Attorney General is trying to recreate the perception that there is not political interference in the legal branch. That's why he did that interview. That's why he's saying he's not being bullied. But then you see this tweet today from the president, which shows he still wants to have the last word here and argue, it appears in this tweet, that he does have the right to interfere in legal proceedings as the chief law enforcement officer.
And it gets
of course,
into
these branches are supposed to be separate.
Margaret, I want to go to your, folks, to full idea. CBS's bench on the Justice Review and legal matters in Washington is off the charts quality. Margaret, what's fascinating to me is the beginning of the tweet is the president has never asked me to do anything in a criminal case. Is the president suggesting he has a unilateral right in criminal and civil matters as well?
That seems to be what the president is saying in that tweet, which directly contradicts what the attorney general said yesterday, which was that to date, he said the president had never asked him or told him to interfere in a criminal case. It only also adds to speculation that whatever the sentencing ends up being for Roger Stone, the president's friend who was going to be given a 7 to 9 year sentencing recommendation until the Justice Department pulled back on that. That is the case that kind of heightened the scrutiny around this, because Roger Stone is not just any person. He is someone who is a friend and self-proclaimed dirty trickster who worked on the Trump campaign and had a conduit through WikiLeaks for disinformation. So it is raising a lot of eyebrows when Barr says that one had nothing to do with the other, that this was not a matter of political interference whatsoever. We're going to talk about this on Sunday with Amy Klobuchar, because she sits on the Judiciary Committee, which is supposed to have oversight of the Department of Justice. We want to ask about her thoughts on this. And of course, she's a 2020 contender. And then we'll have Paula Reed, our great Justice and White House correspondent, give us some analysis on what's actually going on, because there has been some dissension in the ranks of the Justice Department. You had resignations, you had protests saying that they are internally perceiving this to be political interference in the courts.
So, Margaret, do you think this puts Attorney General William Barr on the hot seat as it may be as it relates to President Trump? I mean, it's very rare that we see someone of the stature of Attorney General Barr kind of publicly rebuke the president.
You rarely see anyone in the Trump cabinet rebuke the president. The fact that the Attorney General sat to do this on camera, the president's preferred method for receiving information is television. He makes that clear that he's a consumer of it. Barr was trying to send a message not just to the president but to the public to address really valid concerns within the Justice Department that these constitutional norms are being violated, and that there was real risk here. There was concern within Congress as well that this was happening. There's also also concerned that once the sentencing does happen for Roger Stone, the president could step in and pardon. No one's saying that's not his right to do so, but it certainly looks like the executive branch overruling all the other institutions.
So what's important here, and I don't know if you have Chief Justice Roberts on the show this weekend, that would be a coup, Margaret, but there's some call from Democrats and others where the judiciary begins to sidle into this issue of an executive branch taking on, in their interpretation, new duties and new responsibilities wrapped around legislative, executive, and judicial. I mean, do you expect, does Paula Reed expect the judiciary to come to the rescue?
Well, it's supposed to be that no one's above the law, and that the law and the courts are supposed to be the rules of the road. And so this is why you have these, career lawyers very frustrated here. And it is so rare these days that you see an ally of the president feel empowered enough to actually criticize him publicly. Usually that's done in private. So this shows you that this is sort of next level concern.
Margaret Brennan, thank you so much for the extended time today. Ms. Brennan, of course, with Face the Nation. See it on the CBS television networks. Sunday morning, you could hear it. Face the Nation, Sunday, 2 p.m. in New York, Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 106.1, Boston, Newburyport. Face the Nation this Sunday at 2 on Bloomberg Radio. Absolutely extraordinary. Paul, how on Tesla, and yes, Paul, thank you for noting that I did it at $940 a share. I bought my 8 shares. What do they do on a secondary? Do they make like 5 phone calls?
I think so, Tom. I think.
How is it sold?
I think this is, the Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, they made a few phone calls, placed the stock, and a 5% discount. It's already trading up in the pre-market. So if you bought stock on the secondary, you're already in the money. Very
good. Paul Sweeney with equity analysis this morning. With the news in New York City, here's Michael Barr.
Tom, Paul, thank you very much. China is reporting another sizable rise in the total number of people sickened by the coronavirus. The number of cases has been rising more quickly since the hardest hit province changed the way it is counting them. HHS Secretary Alex Azar says that despite a difficult situation there, China must be honest in dealing with the crisis.
China's facing an unprecedented public health crisis. I mean, look, they've got 60 million of their citizens in a geographic quarantine. They're facing the complete stressing of their infrastructure and public health system. So some of the data issues might just be the chaos of a public health crisis, but it is very important that the World Health Organization hold China to account for transparency and cooperation as they would any other country.
A Chinese health official says more than 1,700 medical workers have been infected by the new virus, and 6 have died. The virus has killed about 1,400 people. Attorney General William Barr says President Trump's tweets and public comments about the Justice Department and ongoing cases make his job impossible. In an interview with ABC, Barr says he's not going to be bullied or influenced by anybody, and he's going to do what he thinks is right.
I cannot do my job here at the department with a constant background commentary that undercuts me.
President Trump tweeted that he thought the original recommendation for a 7 to 9 year prison term for his confidant Roger Stone, convicted of lying to Congress and witness tampering, was a miscarriage of justice. The Senate has approved a bipartisan measure aimed at limiting President Donald Trump's authority to launch military operations against Iran. 8 Republicans joined Democrats. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. Paul, Tom?
Oh, Michael, we can't compete. Pharaoh can't compete. Section B, row 1, $2,280 per ticket. Sweeney is so large on Valentine's Day. Eagles, you're sitting on Don Headley's lap, right? Exactly. Eagles, we can't compete.
Life in the fast lane surely makes you lose your mind. Life in the fast lane.
Vatsal Shah is
senior project engineer at Mott MacDonald, a global engineering consultancy with more than 16,000 employees. He earned his PhD at New Jersey Institute of Technology, and as an adjunct professor, is helping NJIT students explore emerging technologies.
My focus is renewable markets, emerging technologies, the idea of floating cities. What are we doing to develop that? What will happen to the city on the water? Well, you're going to have waves hitting it. You're going to have solar. How are you going to develop plants? How are you going to develop vegetation and farming? That sort of thought process happens at NJIT. We actually plan out what will the city look like. How do we develop that? So in 10 years, we're actually ready to take on those challenges when we have our first development in the water. NJIT also has been doing a lot of work in self-healing materials, so taking the polymers and the new material that we have in our material sciences departments and putting them into things like concrete, things like steel, reinforcing our soil.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
Rich is just a really good guy. The term good egg isn't enough to describe him. He's also certified organic and free range. Rich puts the cap back on everything. The toothpaste, the olive oil, the shampoo, everything. He lets his 10-year-old nephew beat him at virtual tennis, even though he can straight up slay his 10-year-old nephew in virtual tennis. When the toilet paper is running low, Rich replaces the roll on the actual holder, not just on the back of the toilet. Rich is texting and driving. Rich? No. What are you doing, Rich? I was just telling everyone how great you are. Texting and driving makes good people look bad. Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Influential
For centuries, Welsh farmers have been perfecting the balance between maintaining the spectacular landscapes of Wales while producing delicious lamb and beef. Lucky for us, we have everything we need from the elements: grass, rainwater, and a whole lot of pride. Sustainability is key as we continue to work in harmony with our surroundings to bring you a plate that's uniquely Welsh. It's in the taste. Learn more at eatwelshlamandwelshbeef.com.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
What do you do to be an everyday superhero, like Dan?
So my baby boy Ben and me just wanted to share what we do to look after the environment. We put the wet wipes we use in the bin instead of down the loo. It would be pretty nasty if that lot ended up blocking our pipes.
Wet wipes and nappies block thousands of pipes every year. Save our sewers, rivers and seas by putting them in the bin, where they belong. Visit thameswater.co.uk/bin it. Together, we can care for the environment.
24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow, and we have breaking economic news crossing the Bloomberg. We get the details from Vinny Del Giudice. Vinny, good morning.
Hello, Karen. The Federal Reserve reports industrial production fell 0.3% in January. Factory output alone down 0.1%. It looks like we can pin it all on the production halt of Boeing 737 MAX. Again, industrial production down 0.3%. Factory output also down. January data. I'm Vinny Del Giudice. Karen, back to you.
Vinny, thank you. And U.S. stock index futures did erase their gains. This was following data that showed steady but uninspiring data on retail sales. And it's also as investors assess contrasting data from China on how the coronavirus is spreading. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures up a point. Dow futures down 6. NASDAQ futures up 9. The DAX in Germany, little change. 10-year Treasury up 9/30 seconds. Yield 1.58%. The yield on the 2-year 1.42%. NYMEX crude oil is up 1.25% or 60 $2.64 at $52.05 a barrel. COMEX gold up 0.25% or $4.30 at $15.83 an ounce. The euro 1.0856 against the dollar. British pound 1.3019. And the yen is at 109.80. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and Paul.
Thanks so much. Greatly appreciate that, Karen. Good morning, everyone. Red and green on the screen. I really, with the industrial production numbers, I really want to emphasize, and a major shout out from down Texas way, Jason Schenker, the great economist and oil economist, who gave me years ago the log industrial production chart. And all you got to know, and this goes to the political fabric of the nation, Paul Sweeney, in 2000 something changed, and that the slope of industrial production before then had an American exceptionalism to them, a might of power. And you can make a case it's rising right now, but it's barely rising.
It's barely rising. This has become, Tom, as we all know, a consumer-driven economy, and it kind of goes to the globalization of global industrial production, and how the American economy is adapted, and is adapted as a consumer-led economy.
Also, the service sector as well. We need to go to Beijing and get an update. This, folks, has become, I was like Monday. This will ebb Wednesday. This will ebb Friday. Well, guess what, folks? It's not going to ebb into the weekend. We've had wonderful coverage, particularly from Stephen Engel and Tom McKenzie in Hong Kong. Mr. McKenzie now joining us from Beijing as well. Stephen, I don't care what the news flow is. Things have gotten worse in the last 48 hours. What is the body language from the single party of China? What is the response of the government of China?
Well, the response has been very clearly articulated this week, and that was the removal of those two senior leaders in the province of Hubei, the heads of Wuhan and Hubei province, and putting in place these Xi Jinping loyalists at the head of the province of Hubei, and then the methodology change in terms of accounting for the extent of this virus. So those two big changes are a signal from Beijing that they are determined to try to get to grips with this. The fact that Xi Jinping has put in a loyalist into Hubei, a man who has a background in security, in discipline, and in law, the former head of the High Court in Zhejiang province, shows the iron will, as it were, of Beijing and Xi Jinping to get to grips with this. Now, it doesn't mean they're going to be successful, because they still have that balancing act of quarantining, and we've heard that now, stronger language from the new leaders there to firm up quarantines in other cities in that province, with the need to get the economy back on track.
Tom, give us a sense of what the feeling is for the person on the street in Beijing, in China, about all that's going on, the government response. What's the feeling of the common person there in Beijing?
There is still a significant amount of distrust about the numbers. They don't trust the numbers that are coming out. They are very disappointed. Look, it's hard to speak with a broad brush about 1.4 billion people, but I have never seen so much anger. Haven't seen for years expressed over the death of the whistleblower doctor. That anger remains. It doesn't mean that the party is threatened, but what it might mean is that there are discussions or heated debates within the party apparatus about whether or not the centralization of power by Xi Jinping has been appropriate. That is a conversation that may be happening now at the top of the party. In terms of individuals here in Beijing and elsewhere in China, it's a lack of morale. People and the cities here are very quiet still, deadly quiet. These are normally energetic, frenetic cities, full of drive and determination. That has really ebbed away, even this week. So that is part of it. And people are staying at home and trying to work from home.
Give us, Tom, a vignette of that. If you look at any skyscraper outer into Beijing, you see there's circuitous expressways, elevated and always packed. Are those expressways empty?
Yes, 6 expressways, not entirely empty. I've seen buses, there are cars traveling those highways, but largely empty. I mean, at the very most, 50% capacity. And I should stress, the people who are out, the street cleaners, the security guards, the delivery drivers, they're the blue-collar workers, they're the migrant workers from the other provinces who helped to build modern-day Beijing, and they're the ones who are keeping this city running during this crisis.
So, Tom, if you go to the, how are people just kind of doing the day-to-day basis? Are they going to the store? Are they getting fuel? Are they just kind of the day-to-day? Because I know a lot of the Bloomberg folks, rightfully so, working from home, trying to contain this. What's kind of, as you go out onto the street, are the day-to-day tasks being performed by people?
I'll run you through some of the practicalities. First of all, there's a neighborhood committee that comes and checks on your temperature. Every time I leave my compound and come back in, they check my temperature, make a note of that, and report that further up. I can go out onto the street. There are very few people. There are shops open. Supermarkets are open. I went to the supermarket. It was full of produce. And unlike in Hong Kong, there hasn't been a run on things like toilet roll, for example. So there isn't a crisis around getting products into our homes. People are obviously having a lot of things delivered, but restaurants are largely empty and there's no socializing. 80% of my expat foreign friends have left the country and my Chinese friends are staying at home largely. That is the kind of atmosphere. We're not short of goods, but there is no meeting up and that activity again in the city has really died down.
Wow, just extraordinary, Tom. Thank you so much for that color. We really appreciate it. Tom McKenzie, Bloomberg News, on the ground in Beijing. Just amazing. I mean, it's just a city the size of Beijing, and that's not even the epicenter. How the daily lives of coming and leaving your compound where you live, having to have someone take your temperature, record that. It's just extraordinary. And Tom mentioning, not meeting up with friends and family and those types of things. And 80% of the expat friends that he knows have left the country. It's just extraordinary.
Yeah. And of course, to give you a vignette here at Bloomberg LP, folks, with our sprawling platform, travel plans and all that have been adjusted out of Asia, as with every other company, and so many people traveling personally as well. And then what's fascinating is we've kept at Bloomberg News and Bloomberg Media trying to do this with so many of our studio people unable to get to work in Asia. So that's been an effort out of London and particularly out of New York, but particularly a shout out to Singapore and Sydney that have really picked up on that. And in that sense, it's been an exhausting week. So many of our technical staff, I should say an exhausting 2 weeks for our technical staff. And Paul, what would you say? I mean, it's middle of February and, we're into March on this.
Yeah, I don't. I haven't. We thought maybe earlier in the week we might have seen kind of a peaking of, if you will, in terms of the number of new cases, and when we got the new numbers coming out, that narrative seems to have been pushed to the back. So, still, I think it's more of what we don't know, and the markets are having to adjust. We're seeing that on a daily basis. Flat futures here today. We will get this market open for you. This is Bloomberg.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their business strategically. Yet, the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating platform, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
I'm Steve Meyer, president of SEI's Investment Manager Services. At SEI, we understand the emerging forces that will define success for asset managers and what firms will need to compete tomorrow. That's why we continually optimize SEI's global operating platform. If your business requires greater agility, our advanced technology, integrated best-in-class systems, and multi-asset expertise can be your catalyst for business transformation.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seize change.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute, the latest retail.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
Let's get this right, sir. You didn't see three men dressed as clowns take off in a van with a Renaissance painting because you were distracted by, and I quote, a sporty red compact SUV with a bold mesh grille, a sculpted bonnet with sweeping roofline on diamond-cut alloys.
And beautiful rear haunches.
So, you saw a Jaguar E-Pace. But what about the clowns?
What clowns?
Jaguar E-Pace, designed to steal attention. Search Jaguar E-Pace.
Switch to 5G on Vodafone. Pre-order the new Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra 5G by March 8th and get wireless Galaxy Buds Plus for free. With unlimited 5G data, you can post 108 megapixel photos and download videos impossibly fast. All on the UK's best mobile data network. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
5G subject to coverage in your area. MPerf test awarded Vodafone Best 2019 Mobile Internet Performance. Minimum term applies. See vodafone.co.uk.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Good morning. I'm Karen Moscow, along with Tom Keene and Paul Sweeney. And the opening bell is brought to you by SEI. Asset managers can exceed new thresholds for data management, reporting, and responsiveness. Transform your business with SEI's global operating platform at SEIC.com/IMS. The S&P 500 higher at the open, up 0.1% or 3 points to 3377. The Dow Jones Industrial Average little change, down a point to 29,417. And the Nasdaq's up 0.2% or 17 points to 9728. 10-year Treasury up 10/32, yield 1.58%, and the yield on the 2-year 1.42%. NYMEX crude oil is up 1.5% or 77 cents at $52.19 a barrel. COMEX gold is up 0.3% or $4.60 at $15.8340 an ounce. The euro 1.0857 against the dollar, and the yen is at 109.77. Tom and Paul.
Thank you so much, Karen. Greatly appreciate it. We've been doing all sorts of an eclectic Friday set of interviews today, all very important, but this is the singularly most important interview for so many that are looking at their investment structure and they're just saying, whether they'll admit it or not, we're behind. Lisa Shallett is at Morgan Stanley. She's Chief Investment Officer, but she is steeped in a more holistic approach to not only being in the market, but dealing with the day-to-day fears and trying to move over. She writes exceptionally thoughtful pieces for Morgan Stanley Wealth Management, I should point. Lisa, what is it about Brown University and Morgan Stanley? Like, do you have a kiosk there freshman year? Andrew Sheets is from Brown, you're from Brown. What is it about you guys in Brown University, Providence, RI?
No idea, Mr. Keene. No idea.
Good to have you with us. It was a light cocktail conversation in 2009. OMG, we're all going to die. And then we've had this great bull market. Let's cut to the chase. A lot of people haven't participated. What's the action plan in 2020 to meet the actuarial assumption?
So fantastic question. Look, it's very tough here for us to recommend that clients chase the index. We definitely want clients to be participating in the stock market, but we really think that the index itself is not the place to be. Today, the S&P 500 is selling at about 19.4 times forward earnings. That's kind of an extraordinary forward multiple in a 100-year context. It's in the top 10%. And while, certainly a lot of the mathematicians want to justify that kind of PE ratio, saying, interest rates are low, even adjusting for, a 10-year at 1.6, 1.6%, we're getting close to kind of valuation limits. And that index increasingly is a concentrated bet on secular growth momentum winners. And you know the names of them, the top 5, top 7 companies in that index.
Yeah, Amazon, Apple,
exactly,
Morgan Stanley. I know, fine.
The FANGs. Right now, they comprise about 19% of that index, and are driving as much as 30% of the daily moves. So for clients who want to be involved here, and we do think that there's some reason to be optimistic that the Fed's going to continue to be accommodative, that interest rates are going to stay low, that ultimately when we get to the other side of this completely tragic coronavirus pandemic, that we're going to get a V-shaped recovery in global growth. You want to own cyclicals, you want to own value stocks, you want to own some of those other 475 stocks in the S&P 500 that haven't really participated. So we like the financials, we like industrials, we like healthcare companies, we like energy companies, believe it or not. All those type companies are right now are valued for trouble. They're valued not quite for recession, but certainly for an economic slowdown. And ultimately, we think, that's where you have some protection. As opposed to owning the index.
So, Lisa, I know when you go out to speak to your Morgan Stanley wealth management clients, how much risk are they looking to take on at the moment? They had a great 2019. Are they looking to pull in the horns a little bit, or are they still willing to go out on the risk curve to try to generate more return?
Yeah, no, clients want to participate here in this market, and we've seen, within Morgan Stanley, we've seen, the client cash levels, which had gotten as high as 21% back in last August. They're now down to about, below 10%, actually closing in on 9% of their total assets in cash. And so they've put a lot of money to work in this market. There's a lot of optimism. There's belief that the U.S. economy is doing well. There's belief that the labor markets are doing well. There's belief that there's going to be limited change in Washington. So most of our clients do want to participate, and we're just trying to caution them that if they want to participate here at these high valuations, to do so where you're at least getting paid some yield and some equity risk premium.
Are you one of those? I mean, you mentioned a valuation. I'm glad you did, talking about the forward PE multiple. So, I mean, do you have to see some earnings growth coming out of the S&P this year? Or, if you don't, that could be a real risk to the market.
Look, absolutely. I mean, this has been a market that has massively disconnected from the fundamentals for most of 2019, right? The entire move in the market was multiple expansion from, about 14 times at the bear market low in Christmas Eve 2018 to today. We've seen multiples go from 14 times to 19.4 times. So that's 5.4 turns. That's an impressive move, and that's occurring because earnings are going nowhere. Earnings have actually, in aggregate, been flat. So to your point, we absolutely need to start seeing some of those earnings forecasts, which the consensus is looking for 10% this year. We need to start seeing some of those things materialize later in the year.
Lisa, part of your charm is you actually do link this to the American economy. How am I going to get that earnings salvation with a 2% GDP? I mean, are you guys just assuming a GDP pop near the end of the year?
No, not at all, Tom. So I think, I want to be clear. We're not in the camp that believes that 10% profit growth is going to be achievable, actually. We're much more modest in our assumption. We think, you get 2% GDP plus 2% inflation gives you 4% revenue growth, and we believe that that's basically what you end up getting on the bottom line is 3 to 4%. To get to 10, you have to be assuming that profit margins get better, and that's really what we encourage clients to think about if that's the bet they want to make.
Is this hatchet shallot? Are you telling me across the board 400 out of 500 companies are going to dramatically cut costs? Because that's what I just heard with that revenue assumption.
Well, look, either that or they're going to invest in capital and get more productive, right? So they're going to be able to have operating leverage or spread those fixed costs around a larger sales base. That's how you get that kind of margin and 10% bottom line on only 4% top line. You got to get those margins, and one way to do it isn't necessarily cost cutting, but investing in CapEx. Again, a lot of that's on the come, and a lot of that's anticipated. It's not in our forecast, which is why we think that there could be some disappointments in this market later on, and we'd prefer to play those companies where the earnings are achievable.
So, Lisa, coming into 2020, we had a lot of folks talking to us about the trades to put on for 2020. One of them was emerging markets, and that was before the coronavirus here. So how do you think about emerging markets? Because a lot of folks were saying, geez, there's some value, there's some opportunity coming into the year. How do you think about that?
We're continuing to love emerging markets here, actually, and I love that I'm getting the chance to buy it. I don't like the reason that I'm getting the chance to buy it. Again, the virus is a human tragedy, but the fact that some of these markets have sold off gives us a very good entry point, because fundamentally we do believe that the global recovery will be delayed, not denied. And if anything, the amount of stimulus that the Chinese policymakers are putting behind this, and quite frankly, we may soon see the U.S. policymakers putting additional stimulus behind things. Right. You could get a V-shaped recovery in rest of world markets and emerging markets at the end of the year on the back end of this.
Lisa, thank you so much. Lisa Shallett, she is with Morgan Stanley. Thank you this morning. Red and green on the screen here. Yields are in, 10-year yield in a solid 4 basis points, 1.58%. The one stock I hear everybody talking about, every newsletter, and we had a number of guests even talk about it this week, Paul, is Amazon.
Yeah.
Amazon, am I right just to review this for the weekend? It's two separate businesses. It's the boxes that show up at the door and this cloud. Which are you more focused on, the dynamics of the cloud or the dynamics of the box business?
Fortunately for the Amazon shareholders, both have secular tailwinds behind them, so they're both great long-term stories. Of course, the profit driver for Amazon is the cloud business. So to the extent that this stock is starting to trade more on EPS as opposed to historically just looking at top-line revenue growth, the cloud has kind of become the focus for investors.
I loved what Mark Matheny said the other day, that they're behaviorally trying to have people figure out they need and demand one-day delivery.
Yeah.
It's a behavioral
It's change. A behavioral thing that they've driven with tens of billions of dollars of investment in fulfillment centers and distribution centers and trucks and all the like, and that's kind of where we are.
And Michael Barr's pinning his hopes on the half-day delivery of the Detroit Lions swag for Valentine's Day. The half-day delivery.
Pitchers and catchers.
With our news in New York City, Michael Barr.
Thank you very much, Tom. Paul. Attorney General William Barr says President Trump's criticism of Roger Stone's recommended sentence and the Justice Department's revision of its original recommendation are unrelated. But speaking to ABC, Barr says the president's tweets don't help.
To have public statements and tweets made about the department, about our people in the department, our men and women here, about cases pending in the department, and about judges before whom we have cases, make it impossible for me to do my job and to assure the courts and the prosecutors in the department that we're doing our work with integrity.
President Trump tweeted that he thought the original recommendation for a 7 to 9 year prison sentence for his longtime confidant convicted of lying to Congress and witness tampering was a miscarriage of justice. Meanwhile, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is calling for an investigation into President Trump's tweets along with AG Barr's overruling of the recommended sentencing guidelines for Trump's friend and former campaign advisor.
This all must be investigated. The American people must have confidence in our nation's system of impartial justice.
Pelosi called the president's tweet aimed at obstructing investigations into the Stone case a travesty after the DOJ intervened with a new recommendation
4 U.S. attorneys quit the case. The Trump administration wants to spend $1.5 billion over 10 years to create a U.S. uranium reserve, claiming that reliance on cheaper uranium imports threatens the country's energy security. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. Paul, Tom?
Michael Barr, we're getting in 5s and 10s of emails showing how deficient you and I are on Valentine's Day. It's the same deficiency as John Farrow is. Well, I mean, tonight, Paul Sweeney, the Eagles, Madison Square Garden. It's very cool. Massive sellout, right?
I'm glad they're still on the road. One of the all-time great bands.
Must be divorces. They got to travel.
Yeah, exactly.
They got to get out on the road to pay for the matrimonial bliss. Wave to Paul tonight. He'll be up there with Tim Schmidt singing backups. This is Bloomberg.
Life in the fast lane surely makes you lose your mind. Life in the fast lane.
This is a Bloomberg Pursuits look at luxury. Valentine's Day is not as good for restaurants as you might think. Sure, it can be notoriously impossible to book a table at any trendy spot, and Valentine's is nowhere near a money loser, with a 30 to 40% revenue bump over a typical night. But it's no Mother's Day weekend, the most lucrative 2 days of the year for independent restaurants. In fact, according to a study by software company Wombly, Valentine's ranked 94th in the year for consumer spending. Regular Friday and Saturday nights are invariably better for restaurants, and you can thank all the hand-holding, eyes-gazing, champagne-clinking two-tops that linger over their meals for the difference. For a non-meal Valentine's gift, have you considered opal jewelry? Unlike sapphires and other crystalline gems, opal stones are opaque. It's actually tiny specks of silica that produce the kaleidoscopic, iridescent hues. This makes each gem so unique that every piece of jewelry is one of a kind. Fact high-end designers have taken notice of in this mass-produced world. I'm Andrew O'Day, Bloomberg Radio.
Elite advisory firms rely on BNY Mellon's Pershing to meet the needs of their most complex clients. Karen Novak, Chief Operating Officer at Pershing Advisor Solutions, explains how.
At BNY Mellon's Pershing, we bring customized insights and strategies to help you grow your advisory business and stay on the leading edge. We can support the needs of your most sophisticated clients with a full range of investment and wealth management solutions, from access to private banking to consolidated bank and brokerage custody. Learn why so many of the largest advisory firms turn to us for the financial strength and high-touch service that BNY Mellon's Pershing can provide. Are you well positioned to stand out from your competition?
Learn more at Pershing.com or call 800-445-4467. Brokerage custody provided by Pershing LLC and other services provided by Pershing Advisor Solutions LLC. Both members of FINRA and SIPC. Private banking and bank custody provided by BNY Mellon NA. Member FDIC.
Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. This is Bloomberg Radio. Now, a global news update.
Attempts at a U.S. Taliban peace deal are being worked out in Munich, Germany.
Mark Esper, the U.S. Secretary of Defense, Mike Pompeo, Secretary of State, Ashraf Ghani, Afghan President, and the heads of the U.S. military forces in Afghanistan are expected to have a meeting here. Now, that may be when they choose to announce when this reduction in violence will actually begin.
There's Nick Payton-Walsh. Skirmishes between Afghan government forces and Taliban insurgents continued today, despite U.S. officials saying there had been a breakthrough in peace talks to end the 18-year-old conflict. On the sidelines at that meeting, Defense Secretary Esper is defending his decision to divert billions of dollars from the Pentagon budget to help build a wall on the U.S.-Mexico border. The Justice Department has added new criminal charges against Chinese tech giant Huawei, accusing the company in a brazen scheme of stealing trade secrets from competitors in America. I'm John Trout.
That saying, success breeds success, it's true.
Are we seeing any improvement?
Carol Massar and Jason Kelly.
How would you describe your outlook?
Weekday afternoons at 2 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio. Bloomberg Business Week, now live on YouTube. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. And U.S. stocks, they're little change to higher after steady but uninspiring figures on retail sales as investors assess contrasting data from China on how the coronavirus is spreading. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. The S&P 500 is up 0.1%, up 3 points at 33.77. The Dow Jones Industrial Average little changed, up 2 to 29,424. And the Nasdaq's up almost 0.2%, or 14 points to 97.25. 10-year Treasury up 12.30 seconds, yield 1.57%. Yield on the 2-year 1.41%. NYMEX crude oil is up 1.5%, or 76 cents at 52.19 a barrel. And COMEX gold up 1/3%, or $5.70 at 15.84.40 an ounce. The euro 1.0860 against the dollar. The yen is at 109.75. Consumer stocks gaining on reports that U.S. retail sales rose in January for a fourth straight month, though the prior month's gain was revised lower. Tesla shares, we're watching those, down about 1/3% today. Its stock offering price came in at $767 per share. The company's market capitalization has climbed to almost $146 billion. And watching shares of NVIDIA up 6 1/3%. They're on track to return to record levels after the chipmaker reported fourth quarter results that beat expectations and gave a strong outlook. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and Paul.
Thanks so much. Appreciate that this morning. Karen, Paul, why don't you bring in our next esteemed guest? I mean, it's painful to admit, but we did Financial Tesla earlier with Joel Levington, and there is about, like if you have to change, does a Tesla have a distributor?
No, I think I don't know what they have a website. They shut down their showrooms. I don't mean a distributor
like that. I mean like in the engine.
Oh, I have no idea.
I had a Chrysler Slant 6 and I put the screw in the distributor and ruined it, and my father beat me, and What's the engine look like?
I have no idea. I have no idea. Craig Trudell, he probably knows. Craig Trudell, he's the team leader for all things automotive. And Tom, he mentioned something to me earlier. He actually has 2 reporters just doing Tesla. That's how much news flow is coming out of there. So, Craig, have you seen a Tesla engine?
It's a nice, long, flat, sort of square battery beneath the vehicle. Depending on how much you're willing to pay for your Model S, you can have 1 motor or 2. 2 will make it go insane mode in Musk parlance.
Insane mode?
Yeah.
So when you lift
ludicrous
up the hood,
mode.
Is it all sterile and perfect and clean? I mean, it's. How do you attach it to the drivetrain?
It's obviously really it's tough to you can't see the battery for obvious reasons. They have a nice metal plating that they actually even sort of boosted up a few years ago when they were in the headlines for all the wrong reasons. People driving over stuff and the battery's catching fire. But yeah, the powertrain is much simpler than an internal combustion engine. Harder for you to screw it up and tick that off.
So, all right. So the stocks had this incredible run. Elon comes to the market, sells a couple $1 billion of stock today. Stock's actually trading great today relative to where if you bought the stock. So the story seems to have gone, can they build these cars profitably? Now it seems to be, okay, it looks like they're giving us some profits. Now can they scale the business? Is that kind of where we are today?
I think so. And I think you mentioned the 2 reporters that I've thrown at this beat. I mean, Gabby Coppola and Dana Hull have a great story today about, we call it a virtuous circle, where Elon Musk dreams these big dreams. He goes to Wall Street. They make some nice fees in arranging these sorts of deals. And also, it's a company that, rather than sort of getting penalized for doing capital raises of this sort, we saw a huge run up in the stock yesterday, despite the fact that before the market opened, I think it was down about 7% when they disclosed their big capex plans for this year. That was sort of a cause for alarm, and then boom, you have $2 billion more to work with to make that all work. They are really executing much better in terms of production. They're not really having trouble getting cars out of the factory, and it's a matter of as you say, figuring out how to make this all work profitably.
So I guess the question is now for some people is, okay, again, they can make these cars, I guess, profitably, and that's great, and it's a great technology. The cars are really cool. What's the ultimate demand for electric vehicles? Do we have any sense of that in the marketplace? Because they're only producing a few 100,000 units.
Well, and the big sort of add-on question to that is, what is the demand in China? I think with Tesla, you've had a situation where they have not been price competitive. They've had to deal with significant tariffs. They've had to deal with not being eligible for the same incentives that you get if you're making your cars in China. We've all read about the support that the government has put into that industry and really tried to spur growth. Tesla has not benefited from that up until this point. And now that they have this factory up and running in Shanghai, they're really going to be able to sort of answer that question of how much demand there is in China for these electric cars.
I mean, it's an unfair question, but it's Valentine's Day, so I'll do it. How many units is the scale of a Toyota or a GM versus the units of Tesla? And the question is, how niche-y is niche-y?
Yeah, so Toyota consistently does 10 million plus units a year. Just a little short of Volkswagen the last couple of years, and Tesla was short of 400,000 units. So, this is a situation where Volkswagen last year did 30 times the volume in terms of number of vehicles, and yet Tesla has passed Volkswagen by market value. It's incredible.
Okay, forget about the market value, but what's the history of niche automobile companies? Because Porsche, how many units did they do roughly? I don't know. I understand.
You stumped me on that, but less than Tesla, right? But
Porsche is less than Tesla.
Yeah, but Porsche has been able to sort of play in this nice space of smaller volumes but really rich margins. Ferrari also gets rewarded for doing the same thing, and they do even less volume. Yep.
Yes, Paul. Bentley. Paul. It's Porsche.
Okay.
Ken Pruitt wouldn't let me come on the show unless I said Porsche.
Porsche, right?
So now I say Porsche. The late great Ken Pruitt.
But that being said, when you talk about niche automakers, it's not always smooth sailing for them either. You have a company like Aston Martin that is sort of endlessly in and out of financial trouble, and they're sort of back in it now. In and out of Ford's hands, and now really struggling to sort of go it alone. So it's a tough racket.
Okay, well, the racket is Valentine's Day. Pharaoh's going out and getting 4 dozen long stem roses for like $463 or something. I can't keep up with Sweeney. He's got front row seats to the Eagles tonight for like more money than God at my Madison Square Garden. So if I go home and get Mrs. Keene a Model Y compact SUV Tesla for $74,500, that'll get me to Monday, Valentine's Day.
You might actually have to pay north of that for a Model X.
What are they going for right now?
You can price that up into the six figures.
Oh, I can.
Yeah, there you go. Sure.
It's very Porsche. If you say Porsche, I say Porsche. You're killing, Craig. How much is it?
The Model X, you can pay more than $100,000 for that. Yep.
Yeah, Tom's going to trick that out to the max, right?
Going shopping.
Yeah. Of course. Craig Trudell covers all things autos for Bloomberg
Craig,
News.
thank you. I learned
putting
a
a dent in Tom McKean's wallet. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Message and data rates may apply. T&C and privacy terms can be found at Babel.
For centuries, Welsh farmers have been perfecting the balance between maintaining the spectacular landscapes of Wales while producing delicious lamb and beef. Lucky for us, we have everything we need from the elements: grass, rainwater, and a whole lot of pride. Sustainability is key as we continue to work in harmony with our surroundings to bring you a plate that's uniquely Welsh. It's in the taste. Learn more at eatwelshlamandwelshbeef.com.
Switch to 5G on Vodafone. Pre-order the new Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra 5G by March 8th and get wireless Galaxy Buds Plus for free. With unlimited 5G data, you can post 108 megapixel photos and download videos impossibly fast. All on the UK's best mobile data network. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
5G subject to coverage in your area. MPOF test awarded Vodafone Best 2019 Mobile Internet Performance. Minimum term applies. See vodafone.co.uk.
This is our story. The Birds of Prey.
Yeah. Roman is building an army. He's after all of us.
We gotta clean the city from the inside out.
Critics are saying Margot Robbie is brilliant as Harley Quinn.
Hi, boys.
A fantastic assault on the senses. An irresistible riot of popcorn fun. Woo! Brilliantly acted and very funny. 4 stars. Birds of Prey. In cinemas now. Certificate 15.
The famous 5 are at home discussing their next adventure. Let's visit Tower Bridge, said Dick. Or Cardiff Castle, added Julian. St. Michael's Mount, cried Anne. Dick jumped up. Wherever we're going, we'll need to leave right now. Relax, said George. It's faster than you think by train. Anyway, we can't go yet. You're still in your pyjamas. With faster journeys across our network, adventures are closer than you think. Great Western Railway. Adventures start here. Terms and conditions apply. Selected routes only.
Had the same job for the last 15 years. Working with the same people, in the same office, drinking tea from the same comedy mug, eating the same crayfish and rocket sandwich every lunchtime, using the same business jargon, and climbing the same greasy pole. What does that even mean? Then maybe it's time to switch it up, starting with the all-new Vauxhall Corsa, with its bold styling and up to 70 miles per gallon. To switch it up, visit your local Vauxhall dealership or search New Corsa. Official WLTP test figures for comparison purposes only. Real-world figures may vary.
Winter joggers of London, it's chilly. Your legs are caked in mud and your nose is running faster than you. Then, get that heating on. You deserve it. Thanks to Hive Active Heating, you can control your heating wherever you are with a tap of the app, which could save you up to £120 a year by never having to heat an empty home. Buy today and get a free Amazon Echo Dot. Search Hive Heating. Hive services require broadband and Wi-Fi. Terms apply.
Let TUI help you find the ultimate getaway you've been waiting for with Celebrity Cruises. Explore menus crafted by Michelin-starred chefs, soak up sunshine by the poolside, and discover all that award-winning luxury has to offer. Book through the cruise experts at TUI and enjoy up to $700 free onboard spend for a limited time only. Plus, you can have free drinks, tips, Wi-Fi, or additional onboard spend for an unforgettable experience. Visit your local TUI store to book your Celebrity Cruise today. T's and C's apply. Book by 3rd March 2020.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney.
Are we on the brink of a more serious downturn?
I've always thought of the municipal bond market as a little bit of a safe haven.
Banks are going to have to start paying their depositors more.
Are we still in that mode where we're buying the dips?
Breaking market news and insight from Bloomberg experts.
Cash, if you're looking at treasury bills, provides a higher return than stocks and bonds here in the U.S.
If your consumer is a woman, you're more likely to be a growth company.
Longer-term interest rates can go down, even with short-term interest rates still going up a little bit.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Good Friday morning from New York City to our worldwide audience. Happy Valentine's Day. Coming up, we're going to take a look at Tesla. The company sold $2 billion worth of stock last night. The stock is actually trading up this morning. We'll take a look at the use of proceeds and what the future looks for Tesla. We're also going to take a look at how U.S. states are trying to kill certain mergers, given that some of the federal regulators are stepping back in certain situations. But first, let's go to John Tucker of Bloomberg News for a Bloomberg Business Flash. John.
And Paul, we have some breaking news. The February Consumer Sentiment Index from the University of Michigan, the preliminary number for February, coming in better than estimates, 100.9. The estimate by economists surveyed by Bloomberg was for 99.5. Well, equities edging higher. S&P 500 rising at the open with the chip maker NVIDIA and travel giant Expedia jumping after making some strong forecasts. Consumer stocks gained in reports that retail sales rose. Let's get more on that retail sales number that we got this morning from Bloomberg's Vinny Del Giudice.
January's 0.3% gain suggests consumers are hanging in there, generally strong, steady. Building materials posted a hefty gain. Retail stores, furniture, autos also up, but we could see wavering ahead. The Retail Control Group, which cuts through some of the noise, was flat. Still, consumers are hanging in there for now. Vinny Del Giudice, Bloomberg Radio.
And oil continues a bit of its rebound. We have Brent, the international benchmark right now, up 99 cents a barrel, 57.33. NYMEX crude, this is West Texas, that's up 1.4% at 52.14 a barrel. As for stocks, major indexes, not much movement in the broader index. S&P 500 up only about 1 point. We're 33.74. The Dow Jones Industrial Average 20 points lower at 29,402, and the Nasdaq Composite Index 12 points higher. That's up 0.1% at 97.24. 10-year yield right now at 157. That's down about 4 basis points. We check the markets for you every 15 minutes during the trading day right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker. That is your Bloomberg Business Flash. Paul and Lisa.
Thank you so much, John Tucker. We are looking at exactly what John was saying, which is rather lackluster trading when you just look at the moves, but a really interesting series of economic data coming out across the tape this morning. Dave Wilson, Bloomberg Stocks editor, joining us here in our interactive broker studios, really highlighting the divergence in the economy where you've got industrial production just sagging away, underperforming consistently, and then you have consumer sentiment just coming out, just crossing the Bloomberg terminal at the highest since 2018. You have that consumer still feeling really good, but the retail sales suggest perhaps a little bit of that sheen coming off. Dave, how are we seeing this reflected in the consumer staples and the consumer discretionaries this morning?
You're not, basically. I mean, they have no direction at this point, neither of those groups. I mean, if you're looking for movement in the S&P 500 today, you really can't find much. And, the same is true for the industrial stocks. I mean, they're actually up just a touch, too, along with the consumer-related shares. I mean, it's been a busy time for earnings. Today, not so much. So it's like the issues that have been front and center for investors are kind of sitting on the back burner for the moment. I suppose you could say the same for the coronavirus. You've got a market without much direction here.
And Paul, I would say that right now it feels like there's so many different data points. There's so much information coming out with the coronavirus, exponential increases in the numbers reported, questions coming from the White House about the accuracy of any of this reporting. U.S. officials still not allowed into China to sort of help on the ground to get some surveillance as to what's going on there. So we don't have a sense of that. And meanwhile, you have the cross currents of Europe growth continuing to underperform, coming in at the slowest since 2013. And you have still that strong consumer in the U.S. How do you sort of square this all with central bank policy that tends to be easy? It's sort of mind-boggling, and then volumes fall off a cliff and everybody just goes home.
Exactly. You could basically just summarize what's going on in the world. And I think one of the key issues there, and Dave, and this has kind of been the underpinning of the market, is, central bankers, as Lisa was mentioning, remain very dovish across the globe. And so therefore you have this liquidity-driven market, Dave. And I think some people are starting. We had Lisa Shallett from Morgan Stanley Wealth Management on in the previous hour highlighting the valuation risk in the S&P 500, now 19 times forward earnings. And it's really concentrated in some of those leading names, the FANGs, the tech names that we all know. And she is suggesting that you stay in the market, but you look for other sectors that maybe aren't those 5, 6, 7, 8 names.
Well, the valuation risk arguably has been there for some time when you look at things like prices relative to earnings, prices relative to sales, other indicators. You've seen them hit historical highs and stocks have kept rising anyway. So it's understandable that people would focus on, shall we say, the liquidity side because, here's a comparison that I can't help but keep coming back to. Right now, you've got the S&P 500 with a dividend yield of about 1.8%, a little bit below there at the moment. And then you look at the 10-year Treasury, and it's yielding, less than 1.6%. So stocks have that in their favor, the income side of the argument. And on top of that, you have an S&P 500 that's been setting records repeatedly. So you arguably have the best of both worlds at this point, capital gains and income. I mean, after all, that's what an investor is usually after. So it's working out being in stocks. It's understandable people would want to stick with them and perhaps put in a little more money given the comparisons between markets.
It's worked to be in absolutely everything. I'm looking right now at junk bond yields near the lowest in record, 5.1% average across the entire index. I'm looking at investment grade bond yields at 2.61%. So that means that an investment grade rated company can go out there and borrow money at a rate that looks treasury-like at this time. And this sort of everything rally has Guggenheim partners Scott Meinard coming out with a report overnight that was really, really bearish. I mean, he's been bearish for a while, but this is sort of taking it to the next level. He said, I have never in my career seen anything as crazy as what's going on right now. I have said before that we have entered the silly season, but I stand corrected. We are in ludicrous season. How many people are agreeing with him right now, Dave?
mean, there's certainly that school of thought, but it's not new in a sense. And when you say an everything rally, I go right to the Bloomberg Commodity Index and say, well, not everything, because that indicator from its peak in January, I mean, it's down 7.5%. It's been down more than that. That's an area you can point to and say the coronavirus is having an effect, because we know China is such a substantial consumer of a whole lot of commodities, and they're just not buying the way they did.
Yeah, that's interesting. The commodities, we've had some folks come in and show us just across the board, the metals, the ags, kind of across the board, down high singles, low double digits. And that is really reflective of the coronavirus. Yet you look at the equity markets and...
Hold on a second. Is this reflective of the coronavirus or that bifurcation that we continue to see, which is that industrial production keeps dropping?
Yep.
And we see that globally, and we've had an industrial recession that's ongoing, and we got those numbers overnight out of Europe showing the same things continuing, and then you've got the coronavirus, which just exacerbates that.
Right. That's arguably the point. It's aggravating a situation that was already there.
So what are you looking for next week?
What am I looking for? Well, to get out from under earnings. How's that?
Well, I mean, now that we're on, how far along are we? Where are we?
I mean, we're going to get to the point where the retailers will start kicking in. And so that'll be the area to watch. You've got, just looking at next week, you've got Walmart on Wednesday. And then more after that, really it's into the following week that you start to see them. But, at this point, I mean, it looks like earnings will be up. I mean, the real question is what happens to profit this year, because we're seeing estimates coming down. I mean, you sort of get into that cycle, and it really is a matter of, how well can companies kind of lower the bar so they can jump over it.
Dave Wilson, are those hearts on your tie?
Yes.
Very good.
I love that you have themed ties. I want to see the color-coded, holiday-coded tie wardrobe that you have. Dave Wilson, Bloomberg Stocks editor, will be joining us later for a Valentine's Day special. Right now, let's head down to our 99.1 studios in Washington, D.C. Nathan Hager with world and national headlines. Nathan.
Lisa, President Trump is tweeting about the Justice Department again, a day after Attorney General William Barr urged him not to. In an interview with ABC News, Barr said the president's comments about cases before the Justice Department make it impossible to do his job. At the same time,
I'm happy to say that, in fact, the president has never asked me to do anything in a criminal case.
And the president reiterated that point on Twitter, but said he has the legal right to do so. So far, he says he's chosen not to. Earlier this week, President Trump praised Barr for stepping in to lower the sentencing recommendation for his longtime friend Roger Stone. 4 career prosecutors resigned after that. Health Secretary Alex Azar says the U.S. stands ready to help China to investigate the coronavirus.
The World Health Organization, we believe, has secured agreement to deploy a WHO team with our U.S. public health experts as part of that team. We are ready to go, and we are waiting for final clearance from the Chinese government to make that happen.
Azar spoke with CNN this morning. The death toll from the outbreak is close to 1,400 now, with more than 63,000 infections confirmed under a new reporting method in hard-hit Hubei province. China also says more than 1,700 medical workers have contracted the illness as of Tuesday. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says she agrees with President Trump when it comes to the threat posed by Huawei Technologies providing 5G equipment to U.S. allies. Speaking at the Munich Security Conference, Pelosi says the most insidious form of aggression is for a company dominated by an autocratic government that doesn't share our values to infiltrate technology infrastructure. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. This is Bloomberg.
Have you ever thought, I wish I'd had that information sooner?
What does this tell us about the state of deal making?
Let's fix that.
One unprofitable company plus another doesn't make a profitable company.
Carol Mazur.
Talk to us about real-world applications.
Jason Kelly.
Remind us what the potential is for everyday folk.
Bloomberg Business Week.
Vice President of Exploratory Science is one of the cooler titles.
Weekday afternoons at 2 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg Business Week, now live on YouTube.
Imagine being fired because of who you love. Imagine being denied medical treatment because of who you marry. Imagine being evicted because of who you are. Millions of Americans don't have to imagine this. They have to live it. Because in 31 states, it's legal to discriminate against LGBT people. Get the facts at beyondido.org. Brought to you by the Gill Foundation and the Ad Council.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies? Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
Jelly. Jelly adjective. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt US Kids, and the Ad Council.
In-depth analysis, concise report.
Coming soon, Ricochet, the new action film written by, directed, and starring Euro Millions winner Timothy Barker, with music by Timothy Barker.
This Friday's Euro Millions jackpot is a massive £14 million. That's dream come true money. Euro Millions from the National Lottery. More numbers make amazing happen. Estimated jackpot. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
A half-price dream holiday. Wouldn't want to miss that. A takeaway for free. Wouldn't want to miss that. And 30 gigs data for just £10 a month on Smarty Mobile. You definitely don't want to miss that. Our Smarty SIM comes packed with 30 gigs of data and unlimited calls and texts for just £10 a month on a 1-month plan. That's why Smarty won Best Value SIM-only network in the USwitch Mobile Awards 2020. Don't miss out. Search Smarty Mobile. Smarty. Simple, honest mobile. Smarty.co.uk.
WW Weight Watchers Reimagined have a new customised weight loss programme, My WW, where no foods are off limits. Just fill out a simple assessment and get matched to a plan that suits you. You love eating carbs, cooking at home, or eating out? No problem with this new customised plan. Discover which new My WW plan can make losing weight easier for you. Shape up for spring with your first month free, plus a free month of meal plans. Offer ends 15th of February. Subscription fees and conditions apply. Mainland UK only. See website for details.
For gentlemen who value the quality of an exquisitely made shoe, Jones Bootmaker Master Shoemakers introduce the world-exclusive collection by Loke. Experience the comfort of the cushioned leather footbed and the sustainable, repairable Goodyear welted sole. The world-exclusive comfort collection by Jones Bootmaker and Loke, handmade in Britain. Available at Bow Lane, Broad Street, Fenchurch Street, German Street, Canary Wharf and stores nationwide. Or order online at jonesbootmaker.com.
You could find a £5, a £10, a 20, or even a crisp 50 inside the Sun on Sunday. That's right, cash! Yes, real banknotes inside the paper. We're giving away a wallet-busting amount of cash this weekend only in the Sun on Sunday. It pays to read The Sun. T's and C's apply.
The UK has now left the EU, and we're in a transition period until the end of the year. Throughout this period, the government will be forging new partnerships with the EU and the rest of the world. This could lead to new arrangements for trade, travel, and business. To find out about the changes and how they might affect you, go to gov.uk/transition.
What do you do to be an everyday superhero, like Dan?
So my baby boy Ben and me just wanted to share what we do to look after the environment. We put the wet wipes we use in the bin instead of down the loo. Would be pretty nasty if that lot ended up blocking our pipes.
Wet wipes and nappies block thousands of pipes every year. Save our sewers, rivers and seas by putting them in the bin, where they belong. Visit thameswater.co.uk/bin it. Together, we can care for the environment.
Welcome aboard Europe's 169th safest airline.
You were like my 169th biggest crush in school.
Your total body age is 169.
The number 169 never screamed glamour until now. Get the Toyota Aygo X-Play for only £169 deposit, then £169 a month with 0% APR representative. Just go. Aygo.
0% APR representative on new sales of Aygo X-Play over 48 months. £169 per month. Customer deposit of £169 when proposed and approved via Access Toyota by 31st of March 2020. £3,311 £1,099.25 optional final payment. Subject to status to over 18s. Indemnities may be required. Conditions apply. Toyota Financial Services.
News 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm John Tucker, the Bloomberg Newsroom, with this Bloomberg Business Flash. Kind of a lackluster day as far as trading goes. Equities drifting right now. We had some figures on retail sales, not given much of a lift either way. Investors also assessing the data from China and how the coronavirus is spreading. We do have a bit to treasuries. The benchmark 10-year yield right now down about 4 basis points. We're at 157. Prices up by 10-30 seconds. The S&P 500, I'm going to call it unchanged right now, 33.73. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, 34 points lower. We're at 29,389. The Nasdaq Composite Index up just 2 at 97.14. There is a bid to crude oil. The international benchmark, Brent, up 91 cents a barrel, 57.25 right now. NYMEX crude is up 63 cents at 52.05. And we have 389 companies in the S&P 500 have reported earnings so far this earnings season. And of those, just about 76% have had positive earnings surprises. We check the markets for you every 15 minutes during the trading day right here on Bloomberg Radio. I'm John Tucker, and that is your Bloomberg Business Flash.
You're listening to Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Tesla did it. It achieved something absolutely unthinkable just a couple months ago. It raised money in the equity market and its shares ticked up and then today are basically flat, or completely flat actually right now on the day, as people assess the idea that Tesla is going to raise more money, defy what Elon Musk himself said, which is that they weren't going to raise any more capital, and spend more on their infrastructure and build out. Liam Denning joining us right now to weigh in on this stock fundraising. Liam Denning, energy, mining, and commodities columnist with Bloomberg Opinion. Liam, you wrote a column, Tesla stock sale is so right, but feels so wrong. Why did you write that?
It's my job to write.
Okay, we're done. We're done now. Happy Valentine's Day, Liam. It's been real. No, I mean, honestly, why do you think it's, first of all, why does it feel wrong to you?
Why it feels wrong? Well, I mean, you touched upon it there. You know, it's only a couple of weeks ago or so that, the CEO, Elon Musk, was brushing away questions about capitalizing on the strong stock price to raise more capital. I mean, and there are other reasons. You know, the company ended 2019 with roughly $6 billion on the balance sheet, which I think is the highest for any year end for the company so far. It has this building narrative that it is, now either self-funding or about to be self-funding. There are always caveats about that, but it generated nominally $1 billion or so of free cash flow in the fourth quarter, and I think one of the reasons the stock has run up is people think, Tesla's turned the corner and is self-funding. So for it to now come out and say we're going to sell another $2.3 billion of equity is a surprise.
But we see this all the time when companies have run-ups in their stock price, that they issue equity. And we had the COO of Shopify in yesterday, and I asked him the same question. I said, your stock is up, a couple 100% in the last year. Why aren't you doing what Elon Musk is doing and is raising equity capital here? So isn't that a prudent thing for Elon Musk and the company to do?
Yeah, and that's why, the first half of that headline on the piece, it feels so right is, of course, if your stock has, tripled in the space of 3 or 4 months, and, the balance sheet for all the narrative about turning the corner still looks, not exactly like it's self-funding, then sure, you should go out. The prudent thing to do is to go out, capitalize on that. I mean, if you look at Tesla's valuation multiples, they are off the charts. Investors are virtually begging this company to just issue more equity, given that, the effective cost of capital seems to be virtually zero.
Yeah, Liam, let's move beyond dissecting the headline, and now we're going to dissect the first line of the article. Now, digging more deeply into this issue, there is a question, why aren't they raising more money in the equity market, number one? Were you surprised that it was such a small amount?
I wasn't surprised that it was such a small amount. As I said, they they had $6 billion on the balance sheet. They had been talking about not necessarily needing to raise. For me, what this comes down to is really just a sort of a dissonance in the Tesla narrative, which is a fairly consistent theme for those of us watching the company. I mean, the same day they did this issue, they released their 10K and issued their CapEx guidance. And, their CapEx numbers have been interesting because this is a growth company, remember. Last year they underspent their original CapEx budget by around 50%. And actually, in dollar terms, the underspend on CapEx basically matched the free cash flow number that they announced last year. And you have to wonder why a company that is priced for exponential growth is underspending on its CapEx budget. And lo and behold, when they announced the CapEx budget for this year and actually going out the next 2 years, it ramps up significantly, which is what you would expect for a growth company. And so for me, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, okay, so last year they reported positive free cash flow, which is unusual for Tesla. That has driven the narrative that they are now self-funding. But here we are in February, and they are both raising more money and announcing a big ramp-up in spending. And so, again, for me, it comes down to the narrative underpinning this very high stock price just has all these conflicting signals in it.
Liam, so just real quickly, looking at the 10K, do you feel like the free cash flow that they did report, is that quality free cash flow or maybe just more accounting?
Well, one number that stood out to me when I look at the full-year figures as a whole, I've mentioned the underspending on CapEx, so that's one issue. The other is that roughly 70% of the free cash flow number they reported is accounted for by stock-based compensation. And now you can say, well, it's a non-cash charge, and therefore, it's fair enough. It's reported in operating cash flow. But that's still a claim on the company's profits. I think Warren Buffett once said, if stock-based compensation isn't a cost, then what the hell is it? I may be paraphrasing him there. Right. But yeah, I mean, it still seems to me that we haven't yet reached the point where Tesla's free cash flow is high quality and justifies its valuation.
Liam Denning, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate your thoughts. As always, Liam Denning, energy, mining, and commodities columnist for Bloomberg Opinion, also follows Tesla very closely, joining us on the phone here again. Another news-filled day with Tesla pricing about a little over $2 billion worth of stock last night. Stock trading very steady today with all that new stock in the market.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Stocks little change. Traders sorting through contrasting data from China on how quickly the coronavirus is spreading. Nonetheless, stocks globally are headed for a second successive week of gains. Expedia on the rise after saying it expects to maintain bookings this year despite slowing travel demand due to the coronavirus. The online travel giant said it sees double-digit profit growth this year. However, Royal Caribbean Cruises has canceled 18 sailings because of the coronavirus. It also rejiggered itineraries, which put a crimp on the cruise line's profit for this year. Travel restrictions have forced the industry to turn away customers, and ships have been quarantined or not allowed to disembark in some ports. And spending a little extra to say I love you this year? The National Retail Federation found that those celebrating Valentine's Day plan to spend an average of $196, up 21% from last year. This could boost total spending on the holiday to a record $27.4 billion. Courtney Donahoe, Bloomberg Radio.
Hope you enjoyed your meal. And I just want to say, he's lucky to have a brother like you.
Lucky? Caring for my brother is far from easy. But he's a part of me, like my arms and legs, so I'll be his. No time for tired. Nothing can disable this love. He needs me, but I'm the lucky one, even though I need help now and then.
If you're caring for a loved one, visit aarp.org/caregiving for care guides and community support for your strength. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies? Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers. In-depth analysis, concise.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
This is our story. The Birds of Prey. Yeah. Roman is building an army. He's after all of us. We gotta clean the city from the inside out.
Critics are saying Margot Robbie is brilliant as Harley Quinn.
Hi, boys.
A fantastic assault on the senses. An irresistible riot of popcorn fun. Woo! Brilliantly acted and very funny. 4 stars. Birds of Prey. In cinemas now. Certificate 15.
It was a Sunday morning when I jumped on the tube.
And decided to pop down to Greenwich via
a large indoor jungle.
And when I got there, I was captivated by a sparkling
scary dinosaur just standing there right in front of me.
So off we went to Wembley Park
to look at the colourful fish.
Tap into the wonderful world of Off-Peak London. Travel in zones 2 to 6 for £1.50. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters. £1.50 is an adult off-peak pay-as-you-go fare for a journey not going via Zone 1 on Tube, DLR and most London Overground services. Always touch in and out with the same card or device to pay the right fare.
The B&Q 3-for-2 paint offer is now on. Get an unmissable 3-for-2 on coloured emulsions such as Dulux, Farrow & Ball and Valspar. Don't miss out on this show-stopping deal. Get to B&Q. You can do it when you're 3-for-2 it. Excludes white and ready-mix trade. Every third item per single transaction is descending price order free. Offer ends 24th of February. See DIY.com.
At Ring, we've reinvented the doorbell. So no matter where you are, or what time of day, you can watch over your home and the things you care about. Ring Video Doorbell streams HD video and two-way talk straight to your phone, so you can speak to whoever's at your door from anywhere.
Delivery.
Oh, great. Could you leave it with my neighbour, please?
Sure, no problem.
And it's so simple, you can install it yourself in minutes. See, hear and speak to whoever's at your door from wherever you are with Ring Video Doorbell. Available at ring.com and selected retailers.
The Mona Lisa is only 30 inches tall. The world's hottest chili? 1 inch. And Napoleon? Taller than a Great Dane, but only by 71 centimetres. Who says small can't make an impact? The Peugeot 108 Allure is now available for just $159 per month, with $159 initial rental. Our small but mighty car that doesn't have to cost you a small fortune. Peugeot Motor Company PLC, a credit broker not a lender, will introduce you to PSA Finance UK Limited. Personal finance lease, 48 months at 159, 18 plus, guarantee may be required. Terms, eligibility and return conditions apply. You will not own the car.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless.
Follow and TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Start hearing more of what you want.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations, live commercial-free news, and every live NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL game. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Want to know a quick, easy way to see if your favorite podcasts have a new episode available? Just go to the home screen on your TuneIn app and see the latest editions under the Your New Episode section. Happy listening.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio in New York.